Meeting to order. So we're going to start out like we always do with any public comment, which is for anything not on the agenda and should last no more than 3 minutes, please. Mr. Haggerty.
Good evening. For the benefit of the people watching at home, and for the people in this room who haven't returned them yet, your annual census forms were mailed out the first week of January. Would ask you please to return them. You return them by email if you choose to. It costs the town quite a bit of money if somebody doesn't return the census, because we then have to send postage paid, return paid postcards to every registered voter, and it's a lot of money. So please return them by email. Give us a call if you need a copy, but please send them back. For all of the appointed officials in town, this is the time that the State Ethics Commission requires people to complete the conflict of interest training, which was emailed to everybody. And we haven't had a very good return on that. We'll be sending reminder notices about that. That's all done online now. That's for all appointed officials and elected officials as well. Finally, to all elected officials, your annual your annual campaign finance forms are due. And I will send a reminder notice out again to everybody tonight. We'd appreciate if people send those in. Any questions, give us a call. We're happy to help you with the paperwork. Thank you.
Any more good news?
One last thing, February 14th. That's the date that anybody can pull nomination papers for any of the 10 offices that will be on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. How are you feeling? Good? Your foot? You're good? Okay. All right. Vanessa, anybody else in the audience for public comment? We might have an issue here. Do we have an issue? No. Okay, so no one else? Okay. All right, so our first scheduled item is to hear from the well-known, well-liked Mr. Morris about the Tricentennial Committee.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Everybody agree? Do it again.
Hello?
Yeah.
Not used to sitting in this seat. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all.
And introduce yourself officially.
My name is Don Morris. I'm the chair of the Tricentennial Committee. As you all know, Southborough will turn 300 years old in 2027. And back in 2023, the Select Board approved a Tricentennial Committee. And as part of that charge, which is dated April 10th, 2023, deliverables item 8, the following update summarizes the committee's actions to date. It requires us to periodically update you on our progress. So do you have a copy of that in front of you, the report? So we've had 14 meetings, and many or most of them have featured guest speakers with expertise in community event planning. That includes our rec director, Travis, Jimmy Falcone, former select board member, and most recently at our last meeting, we had a great meeting with Ryan Donovan, who just left the room. So we're trying to reach out to the different players in town who should and hopefully will help celebrate and do the celebration and coordinate our efforts. We know that Travis is going to be a big help. He already has been at Heritage Day. So 14 meetings to date. We reviewed over 25 recent tricentennial towns. But in 2025, we plan to go back over that and do much more of a focused research based on the events that we feel are most important for our celebration. So we created a list of 125 Southborough organizations. We've developed a townwide survey, the announcement letter, the 300th logo. Do all of you have that? And the tagline, and then the webpage. And the survey results are a constantly changing and getting more and more data. We also formed Friends of Southborough 300 It's a 501c3 nonprofit for donations, sponsorships, and fundraising. And Kathy, you're still our 501(c)(3).
I'm the treasurer. Yes, I am.
Yes. And thank you.
Janet Maney is on the board as well as Claire Reynolds. That's your board of the 501c3.
But you set it up, right? And
I did.
we're very, very grateful for that. So as you know, in the last Springtown meeting, the town approved $30,000 for seed money, which we haven't touched yet, and we're not allowed to by the state. It has to be within one year of the celebration, either the year of the celebration or 6 months prior to that, you can start to tap into it. So we're not there yet. However, we do have our own fundraising. We've established a fundraising subcommittee or working group and have been meeting over the last 5 months. And the hard work there, which is an expertise for some people, is these sponsorship packages. And they've been working on that for since almost day one. We also had the Heritage Day celebration where we had our own tent selling commemorative bricks, raffles. The raffles went well, T-shirts, and a lot of information. I don't know if you remember, but it was a really cold and rainy day, and put up the tents, and we were surprised at how many people came by and either knew about it or didn't know about it, but when they left, they did. They knew that the tricentennial was coming. And then we also have started an archive of photos and documents. And the most recent information that we have on the archive was just obtained a few minutes ago, and I was sitting over here with Bob Bazarkas. He has some things for us. Hopefully what we do is we borrow them, we digitize them, whether it's a photo or a document, and then we give the original back to the owner. So we've finalized the first 5 subcommittees for the major events, although we're planning to have events in each of the 12 months of 2027. And those events are, the drone show, the fireworks, a house tour, the grand parade, historical activities and time capsule, and the family barbecue and music festival. And then we also plan to have a calendar with some hard dates like the parade for 2027 and other things filled in each of the months. I think that by the time of 2025, there'll still be some room for flexibility in moving things or adding things or subtracting things. But we've learned that anytime we need to have outside entertainment, we have to start lining that up well in advance, which would be this year. And then we're still working with the schools. Andrew has been our workhorse on that one. And Jim Blasky was on our committee for the first year, and he had to leave, and that's been backfilled by Michelle. So if there's any questions, comments, I think we're making good progress. And we're certainly getting a lot of help from the people in the town, especially the town, like the DPW and rec department, and you guys.
Any questions, comments for
I have a
Don?
question.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I've watched the meetings, great progress, good group, a lot of good ideas through there, which is great. Thing I need to know is when do I get my brick?
That's a good question, Sam. It's a very good question. Right now, we have over 60 bricks sold and 22 of the mini bricks. So the first order, Andrew, do you remember, do we need 100?
I think we're looking to sell 300.
No,
Yeah,
but
but I
to
think you
make
need
that
100
first
to do the
lot
first
size.
order. I
okay,
think you're right.
yeah.
Is it
That's
100?
to me.
So, and we're shooting to have that by May. And then we place the order, they make the bricks, and we'll have them for next Heritage Day.
Good, okay.
But they won't be installed until early, I think, 2027. We haven't figured that all out yet, but the first order will be going in May.
I got a place for my mini brick, so I'm eagerly awaiting it.
Well, Don, I think this would be a good time just for anyone that's watching that's not familiar with what we're talking about with the bricks,
Sure.
which to remind everyone. So right now, the main fundraiser that Friends of Southborough 300 has is for selling bricks that you can put your name on or another message on it, and that'll be installed in the brick walkway between the center of the Southborough Heritage Park and the walks either up towards St. Mark Street or down towards the library. And so it's a permanent way to show your support for the town and the 300th anniversary. And we did great selling them at Heritage Day, and they're still available. $300 for a brick.
Right. And
I've got one, and I hope a lot of other people here do too. So I hope everyone considers.
I'm doing two and they're
Yep.
coming, so
I was the first one to order one.
I know you were. I agree. You were. You
Yep.
were.
I was hoping they'd be.
And we did have a couple, I don't remember who it was, did we have some people that stayed at the transfer station to sell some bricks?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
They-
someone gets
they-
warm, we should
Hardy
do that
souls
again.
to sell them during the winter.
They stole Sam's place at the transfer station
Uh-oh.
that day.
So we should do that again when it gets warm.
But adding on to the bricks, Andrew, thank you. If an organization can get 10 people, 10 bricks ordered, the price goes down from 300 a brick to 250. So there's some incentive there for an organization to get people to buy them, and they're less expensive.
And I'm reminded that if anyone has a question what this looks like, there's a similar brick display outside the community house where you can see what it looks like when the brick is produced and put into the walkway.
I think it's a great idea.
And there was just one other item I didn't mention, and that is Shrewsbury is 1727 also. And thanks to Vanessa, we're hopefully going to be connecting with my counterpart, who is chairing their tricentennial committee. And we will start a dialogue between the two towns and hopefully make it more efficient for both towns, and also make it so that there's not a major conflict in their plans and ours. So Looking
Did they
forward to that.
predate us?
what's that?
Did they predate us
I don't think so. I think they're later in the
later
year.
in the year?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good idea, Sam.
We're the senior.
We were
club.
first.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we're a little bit older than they
We
are.
get to march first in the parade. Good.
Yeah. Oh, and also just wanted to ask, this is update number 2. First update was last July. Is this acceptable? Is this okay, what we're doing? Do you want more frequent updates? Hopefully not, but at least twice a year.
I think it's fine. We've got Andrew on the committee. So I think that anybody want more than twice a year?
The meetings are
Yeah.
available to watch if people are interested in each meeting. So
It sounds like a pretty good,
I've
Yeah.
always found that when I've been on the board, it's helpful for a committee, almost every committee, just come and talk to us, 1 or 2 times a year, even if there's not that much going on, just kind of reminds you of what you're doing. So.
Or not doing. And
Yeah.
and in this case, it builds, support for the
Yeah.
event coming up here. So you sort of want to build to it.
Right, I think as long as we keep talking about it, more people will learn about it, and as we get closer, there's always, it's human nature that you wait till the last minute and then, oh, what can I do? And you can't, for some of these events, it would be okay, but for others, it's fully planned and launched, and money has been spent and way in advance.
So just to kind of maybe put the coda on the bricks, the Friends, the 501c3 is a charity. So anything that you donate to that entity, whether it's to get the brick or to do anything else, you can do something less, $100. It's a charitable contribution period, federal and state. So if you don't want to do the brick, then you can do something less if that suits you, but they are.
T-shirts, we have T-shirts.
Right. So
Yeah.
any amount is welcome. It doesn't have to be the $300. So. Don, I just wanted to say, Jenny Martins knows how to raise money. She's good. That whole fundraising group is really good. My job has been so easy. Patty Fiore has just done yeoman's work as far as keeping track of everything and tying things down. But it is a really good group as far as the packages they put together for some bigger sponsors. So we're lucky.
We are, because that's a real specialty that
It is.
unless you've done it before or somehow had some training in it.
Yeah, no, it's an art for sure.
Yeah.
She's got it. So.
Yeah, and it's not small money either.
Mm-mm.
It's looking for some big money.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had one question. What's a drone show?
So,
Go ahead. Andrew.
okay,
Oh, that's right. Andrew's the drone guy.
just so that things don't run away too far, there is we don't know whether we're having a drone show or fireworks, but
Or both.
some people had suggested that a drone show is a way to do something like fireworks, but maybe a little more modern, exciting, and it's exactly what it sounds like. There's drones with different lights that fly up in a coordinated way and make displays. But then one of the things that I'm looking into for the group is how much does this cost? What are some, what exactly would it entail? So it's not, as a committee, we need to talk about, should we go in that direction or just the traditional old fireworks?
Something they certainly didn't have back in 1727.
27, I'm thinking, right, yeah.
I beg to differ with you. They did in fact have them. They were just the drones on bagpipes.
Or they
I
were-
thought you were going to say they had feathers.
When drones first became popular, my husband's quite the nerd, and we had a couple. And I wake up in the morning, he'd have it flying over my head in our bedroom. So drones are very flexible. So anyway, so good job.
It sounds fun, okay.
So let us know if we
said the-
need,
That's the magic word, fun. We want to have fun.
so Don, let us know if we need to do anything else for you, but it sounds like you guys are firing on all cylinders.
Yes, and anything you can do with the departments to keep them reminded that we will need their help and cooperation. Don't anticipate any problem, but I think if the select board leans on the different departments to keep enough flexibility to help us when we need it, that would be great.
We will do that. Is the committee full? You got all 7 filled? Okay, good.
Yes.
That's good too. All right. All right, so we'll see you in 6 months.
Or so.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
you.
Thank you. Do you see Ellen in the audience? Okay, she's over. So you can go ahead and bring her over. So while Ellen's coming over, you will recall that at our last meeting, we filled 4 of the trustee positions on the newly reformed Affordable House Trust. So we still have 1 vacancy. Ellen Maria has applied for that. Ellen's currently on the CPC. You should have her appointment in front of you as far as her background, but she's got an excellent background that fits right into what we're trying to do, which we'll let her tell us more about. But so she's one of the 2 at-large members on CPC currently. There she is. So, hey, Ellen.
Hi, how are you?
We're fine. We're fine. So we're not very tough interviewers, so don't worry about what we're about to ask. But why don't you just talk a little bit about what you do for a living, so we understand how that fits into this, and then what your interest is in affordable housing.
Sure, thank you. So Professionally, I work at the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, or MHP. I'm the research manager there, at their Center for Housing Data. I've been in that role for almost a year, but I've worked throughout my career, in affordable housing, particularly on the policy and research side. So prior to this job, I was working, as an independent research and evaluation consultant, supporting nonprofit and philanthropic clients, both in the housing space and other areas of public policy. I worked for a consulting firm for a few years before that, and then previously at the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard. So studying primarily housing affordability, and housing policy challenges. So as Kathy said, I've been a member of the CPC for about 18 months, and have really enjoyed that work, both the housing related parts of it and all the other related parts of it. It's a great committee to be a part of. And as the Affordable Housing Trust is now reforming, I think it's great the way these committees are being set up with the trust and SHOPC combining. That was something I supported at town meeting to bring together people from both of those committees who have the time and the interest and the expertise to do this work, and so was interested in being a part of that.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with Al. As you may know, Al has been appointed by the select board to be the select board's rep on the Affordable House Trust. So he's one of the current 4 trustees. So Al, you want to?
Sure. I think the big question that exists is whether you can serve on both the Affordable Housing Trust and the CPC at the same time. And Kathy, you know more about this than I do.
All right, so we jumped the gun a little bit on this one, but okay, so Ellen, long story short, the CPC bylaw states that if a committee that's supposed to have a rep on CPC goes out of existence, like SHOPC has, the select board has the ability to replace that committee, which we're going to do tonight. We're going to discuss having Affordable House Trust replace that committee. And therefore, the Affordable House Trust will have a rep on CPC if we vote positively later on tonight to do that. The bylaw also says that one of the 2 at-large positions cannot also be on one of the designated committees. So if you were to be appointed tonight to the Affordable House Trust, and you wanted to stay on CPC, then the Affordable House Trust needs to appoint a rep to CPC. So you would have an opportunity to be that rep rather than being at-large member. Then if that were to happen, select board would then have an open at-large position they'd have to fill. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you.
So the question is, do you want to stay on CPC also?
I would, yes.
Okay. So Al has heard you. We won't be appointing the Affordable House Trust rep because of the bylaw change at the fall town meeting. The Affordable House Trust will do that. So Al has heard you, and I think has agreed to bring this up with the Affordable House Trust next time you meet, as far as appointing the rep, again, assuming that we appoint the Affordable House Trust to replace SHOPC.
Yeah, there is a meeting Thursday night. I've got to double check the agenda and see whether it's on it, but we are also planning to meet probably next week to sit down with Habitat for Humanity, hopefully. So I've got it, but yeah,
So you'll
sometime
take- you'll
very
get-
shortly.
You'll take the lead on this and to make sure they,
Yeah, I will inform the chair.
Okay.
I'm no longer chair, thank goodness. And so the other question that I have is what would you like to see the Affordable Housing Trust do? And how do you feel about transfer of funds from the CPAC to the Affordable Housing Trust?
Sure. So I think it's an answer to kind of both of those questions. I would like to see the Affordable House Trust go through a planning process that with this opportunity of a new group of trustees, also coinciding with Southborough's housing production plan expiring in 2025. I think this is a great opportunity for the trust to spend some time thinking about what the goals would be, what the strategy should be. And that would then, in my mind, naturally lead to a CPC application. And which that was my hesitancy around the current Affordable Housing Trust application before the CPC, and I think shared by some other CPC members, that trying to get a better understanding of what the vision for the trust is, that we understand what the trust is allowed to do by law, but that's not necessarily the same as what the trust wants to do, what the trust thinks that they should do to best support the town. So I think that starts with a planning process, really for the sake of laying out specific goals and strategies, not for the purpose of planning for the sake of planning. But there's a good bucket of money in the trust as well as in the CPA fund. And so I think the trust has an opportunity to really spend that money in a way that can impact the town and really help move affordable housing forward.
Thank you.
Agreed.
This is just a question for my own information. Is the amount of funds in the CPA piggy bank at this point equal for recreation, trust, open space, and what's the fourth one?
Historic.
Yes.
No.
What's the difference, please? Just for my own information.
Not even
So I don't know the totals off the top of my head. There's more money in the affordable housing bucket, sort of how we refer to the different categories. There have been more project applications for the other buckets over the years. The historic bucket is almost entirely spent down and is supporting bond payments on previous projects. There's more money left in the recreation bucket, and then there's still kind of the general bucket that can be used for all projects after those 10% set asides. But so I know we have the current Affordable Housing Trust application before us, but this is only my second CPC application cycle. But my understanding is that there haven't been many applications before the committee in the past. So there is still money in that bucket.
Okay, so the applications that come to the CPC, will they be coming from the Affordable Housing Trust now, or how is that going to work exactly?
So the Affordable Housing Trust can continue to put applications before CPC, but it's not the only entity that can apply for that money. Private developers, Habitat for Humanity, private nonprofit developers who are doing an affordable housing project that fits within the confines of the CPC definition. And Habitat often gets support from different community CPCs. So there can be different entities who apply for that money, including the trust.
Okay, so far it's been my understanding that the affordable housing section of the CPA money has been fairly dormant. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And that's why it's got so much money in the bucket, Margaret.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts would be about sort of taking advantage of that.
Yeah, so I am in favor of using that money for as great an impact as we can. And I think it's important that the trustees collectively agree on what that impact should look like. There are, a lot of allowable uses of that money, buying single family homes, buying down rent payments. It can go towards leverage funds for a much larger project that's done in concert with a nonprofit developer, with the state. And so kind of my top priority would be impact that fits what the community needs and what the community wants. But I think it's would be one of my main goals as a trustee to come to a collective vision of what that impact should be.
And Ellen, my last question, is there any provision within that the funds be used as to lessen people's real estate taxes if they are in need, to make their house basically more affordable tax-wise?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know there are
Thank you.
different, that's to the best of my knowledge.
Sam?
Thank you for applying. I think your background is ideal here, and I'm excited about the possibility of you're helping us find more ways to leverage the money in the trust fund, because I think it is unlikely that we're going to be able to ever have enough money to buy single family houses out there and make any impact. So I think to the point that you just made, your exposure to what's going on in the state with some of these projects, I think would be very helpful to find developers who are interested in coming in, and maybe we can put together deals where the town has property or land that we could provide and some money to sweeten the deal for a developer and wind up with many more units built that way than we could afford to build on our own. So I think that's the opportunity, and I look forward to your helping us make that come true. So thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Ellen, thanks for agreeing to serve on this, on the new Affordable Housing Trust. 100% support your appointment. And just kind of to join the conversation about the CPC funds, you know, this has been going on for years and years and years. So I've just have some, you know, impatience that's built up over the years, because you go back 2 or 3 years ago and Shopsy's position at that time was, we just want to get the money transferred, no strings attached whatsoever. And then it just evolved over time into this more complicated position. But I understand that what you're saying makes sense to me, that does make sense for the new trustees to get on the same page about, you know, how do we want to use this money? Like I thought that one, you know, Al, when you made a presentation to us about, you know, the different options that we don't have to just use the money to try to build, you know, buy single family homes. You can use it for rental assistance, et cetera. I thought that was a, you know, a good discussion that could be had. So look forward to the trust kind of coming up, getting all on the same page about, you know, a focus of how you'd want to use the money. And then I still think of the goal as to get a kind of an annual funding mechanism for this trust so they can really make an impact going forward. Because I mean, another thing we found when we kicked around a bunch of options is, you know, we were looking at projects that would in and of themselves come close to just depleting the whole trust pretty quickly. So I still think you want to be able to pursue opportunities like that, but still have the mechanism to get a source of funds going forward.
Absolutely. Thank
So
you.
Ellen, thank you. I'm really happy that you want to do this. I know you're going to be a great a great addition to the trust. So I don't have any questions. I am just so happy she's willing to do this and stay on CPC also. Okay, so any further questions? Will we take a motion? Andrew, you take a motion? Sorry, Al.
Just the trust, in fact, is going to be talking about its vision of a mission on Thursday night. And so you'd certainly be more than welcome to attend, whether you've been sworn or not. And I am concerned that we spent an awful lot of time talking about doing something, an awful lot of time talking about doing something and accomplishing actually nothing. And that's been going on for 10 years or more. And it is time to actually do something. And it may not, you know, the perfect is the enemy of the good. And so I think we need to start actually doing something. And so I would not want to engage in a lengthy analysis process. There are opportunities that are in front of us today, and that's all I can say about that. But the time has come to actually do something, not to, you know, not to hire consultants to develop another plan. The time is to actually expand the stock of affordable homes and affordable housing in our community, and to actually put the powers that exist with the trust to work in a positive way. So with that, if there's no other discussion, I would move to appoint Ellen as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Term. Or
So remember what we did last time, you know, the term could be no more than 2 years. We appointed Al, and we did 2 people for 2 years, and we did 2 people, including Al, for 1 1 year. I think Jesse was 1 year and Doug and Paul were 2 years, I believe. So the question is Ellen 1 or is she 2? You're either going to have 3 that have 2 or 3 that have 1, right?
So
Two.
I move two.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion is to appoint Ellen for a term to end 6/30/26.
Second.
Correct.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Unanimous, Ellen.
5-0.
Yep.
Get
So now,
sworn in quickly.
Ellen, do you think you can get sworn in before Thursday night?
Yes, I can go tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
Good.
Good. And then is the meeting on Thursday Zoom?
Meaning, no, it's in person at 7 PM. Do you have you have a Southborough address?
Yes.
I'll inform the chair.
Good.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you all.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is consideration for appointment to the Southborough Housing Authority. So this is an appointment that we're doing because the state didn't, to put it bluntly. They have the right to do it. When they don't do it, then we do it. So Mr. Haggerty keeps us posted. So it's now in our hands to do this. We did have 2 applicants, but one has withdrawn. She's got some medical issues. So we now have 1 applicant who we know quite well, Kathleen Berry. Come on up, Kathleen.
Hello.
Hello there. Hello
Hey.
there.
Hi.
Okay, so Sam, you want to start this one?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting group here in that they have basically been focused, in my experience, on Colonial Gardens over there, which is a wonderful place and great asset for the town. But in theory, housing authorities can actually do other things. And I don't know exactly what else is out there necessarily, but we have new management. I think we're working with the Framingham Housing Authority now. It sounds like that's going pretty well as far as I've heard. But I think it's always interesting to talk about what else might we do with that, because we clearly have a great need for housing in town. And more of that kind of housing, I think, could be very helpful. So I would encourage you to look in that direction with the rest of the group. And I'd ask you anything else on your agenda that you would be interested in doing in this position.
Well, I did speak with John Wood and Bill Scanlon. I know that when Bee was going for it, we had a little round table, as we always do when she comes. So it was super interesting. I did read a whole year of minutes, so I know I can come back.
And you're still awake?
I was
Wait a minute.
awake, yes.
Hold on.
Yes.
Be careful, you'll be the one doing the minutes. if you don't watch
Yep,
out.
yep, I can do those too. But I think that I bring the municipal background. I'm very familiar with the RFP process, budgets, all of the financial part and payables. I think what opportunities we have, like I would love to collaborate with other boards and committees who would like to. I'd have to get my feet wet a little bit and maybe attend a few meetings first and see where people want to go. I know one of Bill's biggest, right now, his biggest concern is just quorum. So I can get there on Thursday, but I'd love to expand this. We obviously need more of this type of housing in Southborough. And I think, I've been there. I do deliver the lovely newsletter there. So I think it'd be a great opportunity to even, create a bridge from here to there and make them more a part of the full community as opposed to just their own little community in Colonial Gardens and where else.
Good, thank you.
I agree.
Appreciate your applying. I support your nomination here.
Thank you.
I think you'd be great at this.
Thank you.
Al?
I second that.
Andrew?
I don't have any questions. I think it's great that you're doing this as well.
I also have any questions. And I want to also say that John Wood did call and supported Katie's nomination. So he would like to see her join him on the Southborough Housing Authority. All right, Al, you want to make this motion?
I move that we appoint Katie Berry to the Southborough Housing Authority for a term to expire January 20th, 2030. Ooh, that's a long time.
Second.
Was there a
I
second?
second it. Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Congratulations.
Thank you, Katie, for
the
doing this.
opportunity.
Now,
Thank
we're
you.
still one seat short on this at this point.
Well, let's think who's on it. Got John Wood, you got Katie, you've got Robert Braccio. Is Alexander Frisch still on it? No?
No,
Okay, then-
Nancy Soder,
It's full? This is,
Nancy Soder that we appointed.
so Jim said it's full.
Full, okay.
Okay, good. All right, another full one. Okay. He's not coming right now. We talked, we know what we're doing. Okay, so the next one we're going to postpone till Matt gets here. He's actually at an MTC meeting right now, so he's going to come as soon as that's done. Thank you, Katie. So we will watch for him to get here. Okay, so let's go to the next item, which is the review of the financial policies that Brian Ballantyne, Carla, Mark, Andrew Pfaff, and Al from the select board have been working on and are now ready to start talking about some that they think are ready to be implemented.
Okay, so here we go.
Yeah.
We don't have all of them here this evening. As you know, there were 18 policies that were sent to us by the Department of Revenue a few months ago. Our little group in the AM has met several times now to go to start culling through these. We have about half of them here tonight, and I'll just mention most, and Al and Carla can correct me when I make mistakes, whatever I say. But most, I think, were unanimously supported for the changes that were made. I have 3 exceptions, well, 2 exceptions that have nothing to do with disagreements, but the town clerk asked me, and I think may have asked Al to postpone 2 of these, the procurement in the conflict of interest and the revenue turnover. He will be coming to a future meeting and just adding some comments and suggestions and hashing out some possible conflicts in those 2 policies that may conflict with state law somehow, or so we're going to listen to his good sage advice, and we're going to follow up on those. So I would just recommend, yeah, and unless there's any particular comments that this board has, I'd skip over those for this evening. The other is the debt. I'm going to say that to last. Actually have an addendum here for that. Yeah. And I know it's last second. I think tonight, my goal with that at least, and maybe Carla and Al agree, is to at least start the conversation. We never intended on that being that's a huge topic, and we never intended, I think, on probably getting through that this evening. So that's just something we had talked about at our last meeting that we received recently. So I realize the board hasn't seen it, and it's going to take some digesting. So we'll save that to the end, and I can explain that further, and we can go through it. So I think the best way of doing it is to take the remaining ones and just go through one at a time and see what the board thinks. I'd say the vast majority, at least of what they sent us, we maintained. Some of the changes we made were only really to clarify things, or very small, it didn't change the policy, just changed sort of some of the wording to make it a little more clear on what Southborough does. And then there were some other changes that we made that were a little more impactful on some of these. So with that, I'm going to start with the one, which again, didn't make too many changes, but we did add a date in February where the board with the superintendent would make recommendations for the new water user fees. I think that's totally makes sense, I would hope. Our little group recommended making sure we added some language to having any enterprise fund, not just a water enterprise fund. So in the future, if we do ever get another enterprise fund, we do not have to come back and change this. So we added just a little bit of language to say this policy will extend to any future enterprise fund, and we carried that theme through the rest of the policy. So we're covered there. We did get rid of a level funded. So this is a guideline for expenditures annually that we're forecasting. And one of them was a level funded budget. We hardly do that. We've done it in the past a few times. I didn't think it was, we can always do it by getting rid of that sentence. It doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means we don't have to do it every year. So level funded is literally taking $500 for a budget, carrying it over to the next year and saying $500 for your new budget. It's an exercise. I haven't found it, like I said, we haven't done it very often. So I think that can safely come out. And like I said, if the board does want that in the future, we can just do it on our own. And that's about it. That's really the only changes in this document that we made. So I don't know if there's any other concerns or edits that anyone has or.
So we're going to do these one at a time as far as votes go. So we'll take questions on each one as Carla and Brian finish their explanation. So I assume, Al, you agree that what we've got in front of us, you approve?
Yeah, there's one item that I think we need to have some discussion about, and that's the senior tax work-off when we get to that, and that there may be some actions that we have to take and get approved by town meeting.
Yeah, so
But
there's
other
a,
than that, you're fine with what we've got in front
Yeah,
of us?
it's been a very good working group.
All right, so I'm going to not look to you for questions. I assume you're fine, right? And let
Yeah.
The other four ask questions. Marguerite, anything on the forecasting one? Sam?
Yeah, two things. One, I agree with you about the level funded. I think level services, to me, it makes a lot more sense than level funded. At the end of section A, to say this policy would extend to any other future committee, I think it's clearer to say this policy will apply to any other. Just a more
What do you
direct-
want to say?
I think he's saying instead of would extend to say this
Will apply.
policy
Will apply to, much more direct, I think, so. And
Okay,
that's
so you
it.
just wanted, you want to exchange would extend with will
Will
apply?
Apply, yeah.
That
Clearer-
sounds pretty
clearer for
innocuous,
me.
right? You okay with that one? I mean,
yes, oh, yeah. No, I'm trying to make a change on the fly. Didn't realize I had my PDF up and not my Word. So we'll fix that.
we're making notes, so we can help. Okay, so
that's
any
it.
other questions
Nope,
on
that's it
the
for me.
projection, or excuse me, the forecast? What?
Yeah, she makes all the notes.
Okay. Let's keep going here. Any other questions on the forecasting financial policy? No? Okay, so Andrew, you want to make all the motions and Sam, you want to second them?
I move that the board approve the forecasting policy as amended.
Second,
All in favor? 5-0 vote on that one. Okay, next, indirect cost.
Indirect costs, which happens to be the very next policy, so. As you know, so for whoever doesn't understand indirect costs, basically it is, right now, it is the Water Enterprise Fund. So some of their costs are paid from the general budget. Things like health insurance for employees that it doesn't come out of the water fund, it comes out of the benefits budget. Retirement, employee time, so time that my staff spends on, we process the water bills, we do the payments, all that stuff. Carla does, obviously, their accounting and payables, stuff like that. So that's the theory behind it. You want to charge that back to that that little, fund. So the state has given us a guideline for that. We started off several years ago when we first did the water fund. There's guidelines out there readily available. They're like anything else, every town's a little different how they approach that, but I thought this was a decent policy. Again, we started by changing some of the wording just about the enterprise fund and trying to, again, address the issue that it could be any enterprise fund. So we made some wording changes that you probably saw on those things. I think, and the biggest thing is we kept, I mean, these are the big categories that they gave us: health and life, Medicare, retirement, the audit. I added workers' comp and property insurance because that's a fairly large bill that we have every year that could, certainly somewhat should be charged back to them. So that's just a new category. And I think it's pretty fair. Some towns use this as a method to try to bolster their general fund. So they try to put everything in here they can, and sometimes it's a little bit of a money grab. So I've tried to make sure this is fair. I think we thought that this was a fair policy. And actually, I did start using it for this year's indirect just to get ahead of it for the rates that you'll be seeing to approve next month or in a few weeks. So
So
other than
you've
that,
used it, you're using it for fiscal year 26?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep. It is a little different, like I said, from what we did. We had an Excel sheet. It was basically some of the same things. The date, the time periods we looked at were a little different. And like I said, I didn't have the audit.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Did you pick up
I
on
did
it?
not have that in the past, but now I do. So so it's a little different, but I think this is a good one and no reason not to use it.
So this number is going to give you a little bit higher number?
Well, actually, we're gonna go a lower number this year. There's reasons for that. It's
Okay.
there was a lot of health insurance changes among employees. That was a weird year that number went way down because of what they chose. It actually is going down this year, but I suspect it will go up though in the following years.
I think it's probably important to throw out why they are making sure we say any enterprise fund. There is some discussion. I'd say Andrew Pfaff is leading the charge on this from advisory of looking at creating a stormwater enterprise fund. And if you remember what Bill Cundiff and Al said at the last meeting, as far as what we're looking at as far as underground cost, it may be a viable thing to do. More to come on that one, but that's why it's important to put any enterprise fund here too, because of what may come as far as that one goes. All right, any questions on indirect cost allocation to enterprise funds?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Some tiny wordsmithing kind of things to make it more general here. In background line 2, talks about enterprise fund. I think that should be enterprise fund paren S closed paren. So it could be funds.
Where are you, Sam?
Background section,
Okay.
second line.
Oh, backwards.
For the town's enterprise fund, it's potentially plural, should be fund and S in parentheses there, like you've done elsewhere.
Like we've done in above, just.
Yep,
So to allow for
Yep.
multiples.
I see that one. Yep.
And
Okay.
then the way you describe, let's see, section C4, lines 1 and 2. Should be the proportion of the enterprise funds. Let me just
Probably want an apostrophe after the funds.
enterprise, yeah, funds,
S apostrophe.
deep apostrophe S.
Yeah.
It's S apostrophe because you could have. It's
No,
plural.
It's gonna be
It's S
plural.
apostrophe.
Look at that again. I didn't think so.
Well, if you want a singular fund, yes, but if you
Enterprise,
want to have the
enterprise.
proportion of enterprise funds, plural,
Proportion method.
annual net of debt budgets.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
English
okay.
major, we're calling on you.
Okay.
Okay, so there could be more than one fund, Marguerite.
Yeah.
So don't we need apostrophe after the S and don't we need to say annual net of debt budgets?
Um,
And let's not spend the whole night on this,
S and
please.
apostrophe, with an apostrophe after the closed parenthesis. How about the proportion of an enterprise funds possessive?
Oh, and,
Portion of an enterprise, FUND apostrophe S.
and,
Which is fine too.
Enterprise
Okay.
funds annual,
Yep.
All
okay.
right, got it. What else?
Then section C5, line 1, I think it should be an enterprise funds possessive. C6, line 1, for an enterprise funds possessive.
Okay,
apostrophe
so
S.
5 is the proportion of any of an enterprise funds
Funds.
annual, right? See
Yeah.
that, guys?
Apostrophe S.
Okay, what else?
Same thing, line C6, line 1, section C6, line 1, for an enterprise funds possessive.
Okay,
And that's all the strategic input I have for that one.
is that right?
have we got those very substantive changes?
Water related.
Okay, all right, Andrew,
I move that the board approve.
No, hey, I'm sorry. I just have one. Vicky.
Wait a minute, I thought that was my.
No, I understand, look, but, you know, accuracy is important.
I-
Go ahead.
I don't
under
like being
A.
preempted.
Cost categories.
Yep.
The second bullet, third sub bullet. There really is no town administrative department. So you should probably make that select board, which would encompass it. Select board is a department.
so personnel administrative services provided by the select board. Got it?
Oh, I just select.
Yeah, for select board department. So it, because the select board is a department.
Really?
Town
Okay,
administrator is
select
not.
board department.
It's more accurate. But I appreciate the nod.
All right, boy, we are picky. Okay. Andrew?
If you're gonna do it,
I move that the board approve the indirect cost allocation policy as amended.
second,
All in favor? Okay, that one's down. Next one is, we're going to do other OPEB, so
OPEB.
OPEB liability.
Okay, moving right along. OPEB, my favorite. Again, this is one that I didn't really, or I keep saying we didn't have too many changes to. So I added, or we added assistance from the town's employee benefit advisor for, you know, assessing on an ongoing basis the healthcare cost containment measures and strategies. I think that's prudent. The funding strategies, again, this is gonna keep coming up, this enterprise thing. So we struck water, left just any enterprise operation and the appropriate department head instead of a water superintendent. And then at the end, added any other appropriate fee, and kept water user fees or any other appropriate fee. That was it. The rest, again, they set, the DOR recommended setting a 10% of annual free cash goes to the OPEB. We've been above that. So I don't think that's a benchmark we need to worry about. And even if we do, it's probably going to be very minimal. So I think we're fine there. The only other thing, I did strike. Yep, the Medicare D reimbursements, as my understanding is, we don't have any plans that applies to. And transfer of unexpended balances from insurance line items. We typically use that and have used that in the past few years if we need any kind of assistance at the end of the year for interdepartmental transfers. Thank you. And if it doesn't, it just goes to free cash. So that was the
Okay.
changes there.
I'm gonna start with Sam.
okay. I do have questions about most of these, actually. amazingly.
Go ahead.
In the same bullet points that you struck, the Part D Medicare reimbursement thing, the first one, there's appropriate at least 10% of the annual free cash certification to OPEB trust fund. I realize this is for consideration, but how do we do normally relative to that? Is that a constraint or goal that is something that we always do or rarely do, or?
No, as you know, we've been the 250,000, so
Yeah, but
we're typically under the 2.5 million.
Yeah,
So-
but didn't we, what's our free cash this year? 2.8?
Yeah, this year.
Okay, so
Right.
this year.
So it could impact it.
280.
It could
But
impact it.
this is not a requirement, but it's a consideration. So,
Well, yes, yes.
so it-
So a side comment on all these in general, as we go through them, especially the debt, we tried to have a strategy where we put these together and we abided by them. We didn't want to game it or make it, we're trying to be very realistic, which is some of the changes that we made in here reflect
Mhm.
realism versus, let's put something that sounds good and we also felt that, when we're evaluated on these by the rating agencies and everything, that if we put stuff in here and we're just in violation of everything, that's probably not going to look good. So we want to do something
you're
that
right. Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
actually,
I can't remember historically, have we had at least 2.5 million in free cash?
No.
historically, or
No,
haven't? Okay, so,
yeah.
It's
th-
the
this-
highest.
this-
The average has been about 1.7.
so this could be a violation of the goal here if we leave that
for
there.
1 year, this 1 year that we just completed, but
Yeah,
there were reasons for it that we don't think are going to repeat.
likely not, likely not.
Well, again, I defer to you guys who are closer to the numbers than I am, but
And,
But again, it doesn't say you have to. It
Right,
says
yeah.
among strategies to consider. for
right,
funding.
Yeah.
right. The
So,
way they worded it gave us an out.
But to Brian's point, though, I mean, if,
Mhm.
if somebody is looking at us relative to how we're doing relative to policies, it'd be good to have a policy that we think we can actually comply with.
but we do. This was an anomaly. So as long as we think that this is truly an anomaly, which we think it is,
I think it
2.8
is.
is really high, then I think we're fine.
I think if
Yes.
anything, we'll see things tighten up.
Wait a minute, but if we have less,
We're probably gonna see
if-
things
if-
tighten.
if- but if we had,
Could use a 3-year average, which would,
yeah, but if we had $1 million of free cash, then we wouldn't be, I guess we would be.
We'd be way over if we're
Okay,
doing the
David,
250.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, well, again, I just raise it as what do we think we're going to have there? And if this is an anomaly this
question.
year, then we'll. And one other question, do we have a problem with footnote number 1 back on the prior page, which says that to make the trust fund compliant, we need to re-accept the MGL there? Looked to me like we need to do that.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a weird thing when the state made the changes to the, it's not that our trust funds, well.
Right.
Technically, the trust fund is still valid and
Yeah, it
everything. It's
complies
it's
with the
not that.
earlier
It's-
version, yeah.
But I think it's more of a checkbox that the state likes to see you do to go
Yeah.
back and just make
So
it
if
in
so-
compliance with the changes.
Add this to the
And
warrant for
Can
April.
you add that as a potential article?
Yeah, it's a legality that I don't
Yeah.
quite understand, something about the irrevocable trust and how you can access it, that this will
Well,
make
this-
it more clear.
This stuff came from DOR though, right? So
Yes.
Presumably they know
Yes,
what's required here.
Well, it's GASB Statement 75 they're trying to comply with, but,
Yeah.
okay.
right, it's a GASB.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so anybody have any other questions on OPEB financial policy, proposed OPEB financial policy? No?
That was it for me.
I move that the board approve the other post-employment benefits liability policy as amended.
Second,
All in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay, the next one is the special purpose appropriations.
We finally drove Vanessa out. She's had it.
Yep.
Yes, special purpose appropriations. So again, I don't know what to call us, but the little group decided that in certain cases, we should include the school committee as who these things apply to. So we added that at the top. For this one, special appropriations are typically things that are non-general fund, of course. Again, well, on this one, under the policy, we changed some of the timing of these things. Monthly is a little clunky sometimes for us. So quarterly is a little more, again, this is a little more practical and realistic. You'll see in some of these that we go through either tonight or at a later date, the DOR really put in, they call them best practices, which are good. Some of them, though, are more applicable to a larger budget office that has a dedicated budget staff to do some of these things on a daily basis. And it just didn't make, in fact, you'll see that at the end on one of these policies. So we just changed some of the dating of when these certain events happen. I just need to see what we redlined here. Yeah, it was just more, this, I will admit, this section was more myself and Carla going through because it's, a lot of it's her. And again, seeing what we do now and just making this kind of work with what we have now, which is very good. And it still maintained the basic goals of this policy. So, it's a lot of dating of stuff. I don't know if you want to add to it or, it's really under A and B where we made the biggest changes.
So what's different about what, I mean, you already do this, at least for town meeting to see what we can close out, right? So now you're just going to do it quarterly?
So we do send out updates to departments quarterly on their special funds. Their budget reports go out monthly. But their special funds tend to have less activity. So we send those out on a quarterly basis. So we are doing this. This wouldn't be anything different in that would impact.
Yeah, it kind of that they didn't quite understand our process on this one a little bit, because obviously it says town administrator and finance director will refer to this detailed spreadsheet that we maintain and do things with it. That's really her purview in her office.
Yep.
She maintains all that. I certainly have access to it, but I don't do that. So we wanted to make it more what we do. If it was an improvement, I'd be happy to put it in there, but it's not. So,
And also over the past few years, like when I came to the town in 2020, there was in the audit identified, inactive funds. We have dwindled those down. We don't have a lot of excess sitting on the trial balance. I feel like it's pretty clean.
So you do go through every one of them and look at them to
Yep.
see what's there, what can be closed out? Because if we actually appropriate, we bring it back into revenue, we'd have money.
Right,
Okay.
like articles at the end of the year, if there, and actually there are a few this year that we know we're not going to be spent. So those will, go back into.
So let me ask you this question. How does this apply to trying to get CPC to close out their projects?
There was a line in there about that.
I don't know if it does apply. I mean, I've asked, and I've been told that they're working on it, but I don't know. They're not in a elected board, but I don't know if this gives us.
There's a line in here about it.
Yep, Madam Chair. I think one of the things that we need to consider is that if a group or entity wants to avail themselves of the financial services of the town, these are the policies we expect them to adhere to. And so to the extent that, someone is not closing out or has or is not closing out funds appropriately, then, they should not expect to receive financial services from the town. This is our responsibility in the stewardship of the public's money.
So Carla, not to devolve into a detailed discussion, and I know you've tried to get things closed out. I have. Jason Olenowski has. We've met with Ben Smith to try to encourage him to get it done. And I know they've made effort. There's been time spent. Is there still, in your mind, a lot of old projects that should be closed out?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they did turn back 3 last year. And it was nice to get those cleaned up, but yeah, and some of them are just little residual balances.
Yeah, but every little bit helps, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I asked because I was copied on an email this week between Michael Wyshan and I think Ben, that he was asking for the last piece of a project that had been funded that I guess Historical Society went ahead and paid for because they were just trying to get this person paid. And so now they're seeking reimbursement. I thought it was all taken care of 2 years ago. I was involved in, but apparently it's not. So it's frustrating. Okay. Any other questions on the proposed financial policy for special purpose appropriations?
Yes.
Sam, okay.
It sounds like we don't actually have something like this written down now. Is that correct?
Written down.
The
for-
policy like this written today?
No, it's just a matter
Yeah,
of what
what you
goes out
normally
of
do,
our
yeah.
office. Like, yeah, that's why I'm happy
Yeah.
with the way the policy is written.
And,
because-
and I guess following
our
on what I think I heard Brian saying earlier, I think it's useful to have this written. So in case auditors come in or rating agencies come in, having policies on the shelf and following them, I think reinforces that we are doing the right thing in terms of this stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that's useful. One place I noticed that the language is not parallel here versus other places. The top section applies to second line, select board, blah, blah, planning, CIPC.
Yep.
In their budget decision-making. Other places it said in their budget decision-making duties or responsibilities. Was that word omitted here for a particular reason?
No, what, and maybe they admitted it by accident. I
Okay.
can certainly add duties.
Duties is, but both those words are used in other places here, so, yeah. So either one, fine with me, I don't care. So,
Okay,
Looks like it'd be a typo. They just left it out.
yeah,
it could.
Yeah.
They made they actually did make a couple typos I caught before. It was just typos, literally,
yeah.
but, so it can happen.
So we got duties that it's.
That's it for me here.
Okay,
All right, Andrews.
I move that the board approve the special purpose appropriations policy as amended.
Second,
All in favor? Okay, anti-fraud?
anti-fraud, and I believe anti-fraud was
No edits.
so straightforward. I don't think we had any changes.
There's one edit at the very
One
end.
sentence under ethics training, you've got a sentence at the last that you have. deleted.
Oh, yes, so. Yes,
Said
we
that
did,
term in
we
this.
did.
Mark, have you take that out?
No, no.
yeah, that's the one that I flagged for take out the tracking requirement, which I wondered
So-
about.
Everybody agrees with that last sentence being taken out and then electronically distributed. That sounds good.
And I had a question about if we require it, why aren't we tracking it?
Well, John Clark already does this. Right? I mean, you know who's taken the ethics training.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a duplicate, I thought.
Okay,
So Jim, in the policy right now, there was a section on ethics training and acknowledgement. There was a sentence at the end that the group had removed that said the town administrator or his designee will maintain a database to track the status of all acknowledgements and employee trainings and will follow up with those who are non-compliant with either requirement. That's been your bailiwick. The question is that accurate if you change town administrator to town clerk?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. But is this under whistleblower, page 15?
No, this is page
No.
15, ethics training. So we're under.
Right.
the-
Yeah, I'm asking that entire thing be stricken and I'll work with your group to come up with it because it's contradictory. There's a lot of things that are wrong with that.
But this is not the one you said hold.
Well, I meant you to hold under ethics training acknowledgement. I'm sorry. Page 15 under section H whistleblower.
right.
That ethics training and that whole entire thing needs to be stricken and rewritten. I have 6 different comments on it. I'd rather do it in your group than here.
Okay, but you
This is-
wanted us not to vote on 13 and 16, procurement, conflict of interest, and revenue turnover. You didn't say anything about anti-fraud.
Okay.
Like,
I don't know the cover page, but I'm on page 15 Brian's memo.
Okay.
Page 15, section H whistleblower. I've checked it. Section I, ethics training and acknowledgements. That's the one I'd like you to hold.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
And then
so-
on page under the reconciliations, starting on page 20.
Wait a minute. Let's just stop with this one. Okay, so this is anti-fraud, so we're gonna hold this one,
this one,
right?
yep.
And Jim is gonna work with you to
Yes.
get this one.
We can rewrite this thing to make it, because right now, the way it's written, it conflicts with instructions and deadlines and the way the State Ethics Commission reports these things.
So this one's 95% done.
Yeah, it's
We'll
an easy
just-
fix.
We'll get
but-
that last paragraph fixed. up.
Yeah, we'll get it squared away.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not going to vote on anti-fraud. Okay, next one is grants management.
Grants management. And again, this is a little self-explanatory, grants management. We thought a good insertion on this under section B would be just that will disclose if the grant will incur future ongoing expenses. This was a big thing for the previous boards of previous select boards. This was a big thing for them for years, that they wanted to know when we got a grant, if it was gonna cost ongoing expenses when it's gone, or, what's gonna happen with this thing if we accept it. So we thought that needed to be addressed. And again, under the grant closeout, just made it Carla. That's, again, same thing. That's what she
Okay.
does now. And we did that in 2 sentences. And other than that, that was it. There's no other changes.
I've got a question comment on page 16, under the second sentence about policy, where it says all municipal grant applications must receive pre-approval by the select board and all educational ones by the school committee.
Where are you exactly?
Okay,
Oh, it's first
Okay.
sentence.
Yes.
okay. So I believe it says somewhere else in this document that it's the appropriation of the money. If we get the grant, right? The select board approves actually spending the money,
Accepting the money.
accepting the money.
Yep.
Okay, and signing the contract. But I have a recollection that there have been over the years some smaller grant applications that come up where the department head learns on it, close to the deadline, it's like $10,000 or less.
Yeah.
And we put in the application, but I don't think it comes to the select board. What if could we just say all municipal grant applications must receive pre-approval by the town administrator or the select board, with the idea that if it's something kind of bigger, then, it'll come to the select board, but,
Select board or the designee.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. you could
Yeah,
put that.
I had that one too, Andrew. I mean, I think my sense is there are a fair number of grants that at least I never hear about.
There are like council on aging.
Exactly,
they
they let
get
them get
some.
announced,
Yeah.
but they never came
Council on
to
Aging
us
gets
for.
some every year, same things. Library
So
gets some, so
That's a pretty big change. I mean, it's
Yeah.
always seemed to me that it's useful to have a sort of a dashboard or a central registry for any grant. I mean, I'd be interested in knowing, what we're getting grants for out there, and give us a chance maybe to ask the question about, does this obligate us somehow to, do other expenditures down the road to make this work somehow?
Well, isn't that the reason for this, or at least in
Yeah.
part, is to understand what
Yeah.
we are obligating ourselves for if
Yep.
it's approved?
So again, I encourage this concept, and it seems to me this is a fairly significant change from what we've done in the past, actually. So, and again, this is some amount of work, which I'm happy to have town administrator or somebody else do. I don't think we need to approve every, $10,000 grant. But somebody ought to be watching all of these and coordinating across the departments. If two people are, applying for the same grant or similar grant, let's do it together, kind of thing. So
Right.
sort of centralizing that function seems to me to be important, useful.
So Al, I'm surprised you agreed with this. Given your proclivity to try to get rid of some of the more mundane things that we do. I don't want to see a bunch of $10,000 grants on our agenda. We put
Why
a
don't we
number?
table this one and
Yeah,
Well, what we were suggesting, I think we could solve it by just saying pre-approval by the select board or I thought we could just say, or the town administrator.
That's fine.
And then,
Or their designee,
Yeah.
either one, yeah.
well, then you say, then when are we gonna, so I think that leads to the next question is, well, when are we gonna have the designee do this versus us? So, boy.
yeah, I'd recommend that we table this one and
okay,
go through it again.
And talk about accepting the
Yeah.
money too.
We are not on any time crunch here.
Nope.
Yep. But I think both applying for the grants and then accepting the money seem to me to be largely administrative typically. So I'm not sure that needs to come to us either, frankly.
I'm all for making sure we understand what we have agreed to in a grant application as far as a match, right? We've gotten in trouble with a couple of those. We didn't understand about the match. We didn't have it funded. We had to go to the reserve fund, whatever. I'm all for that. I just don't want to see a bunch of $10,000 grants coming through here.
Well, I think we've also gotten caught short by going and getting money and then we're not really sure how we're actually going to implement it after the fact. So I just think it's good to try to have a way for us to be all on board before we go ahead and do all the work of putting in an application. And then, I mean, I agree, there are some grants that we get every year. Senior center grants, things like, there are certain public safety grants we get every single year.
All right, so we need to think more about this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next one is, so Jim, I thought this is one that, so do you want the procurement conflict of interest one held?
Yes.
It starts on 20.
Yeah, page 20.
Okay, so you want to work with them on that one first, right?
Yeah.
Yes?
The mic.
Yeah. Can I just come up for a second? I feel like I'm recording. You're on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. You can approach the bench. Okay, we'll get to that one, right? Okay, so that's
part of
coming.
Reconciliation.
For the whole reconciliation.
Okay, so
thing.
that's 20, okay, so that's reconciliations, Jim. Yeah, but see, there's a title of each one of these at the top, right? So that one's separate from revenue turnover. So that one starts on 23. So you want that one held too? Okay, so reconciliations we're going to hold, right? Okay, but while we're at it, Sam, do you have any edits to these as far as wordsmithing so we can get that done too?
I have questions about the procurement
Yeah,
reconciliation.
well, so let's go and discuss them so we get maybe our questions out of the way.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead, go back to procurement.
on procurement, just a question of process. Do we actually have confidentiality agreements with everyone who actually deals with the procurement process?
Confidentiality.
It talks here about confidentiality agreements. So in fact, somebody who is evaluating proposals for procurement for vendors, for example, keeps their bids confidential until the grants or contracts are awarded.
So we don't do that.
No,
now.
we don't do that now. We do, obviously bidders are required to sign the required forms for
Okay.
non-collusion.
But the policy
Things
says
like
we
that.
should here.
Yes,
So-
so that would
So
be
we're
a
adding a
change.
policy
So
here.
that's
Yes.
something new. Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Are we also going to then require contracting staff to disclose quotes relevant financial interests? Which is required for people who are involved in contracting. And that, to me, that reads not only our finance staff, but if there's a department or a board or committee that's involved in the procurement process, that spreads out to volunteers potentially, which to me is potentially cumbersome here.
Well, we're considered town employees.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But, I'm not eager to disclose my relevant financial interests more broadly. if
I
don't
think
have to.
what this is getting at is it's just echoing the same kind of conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Rules that, there's some common sense that like, you hold stock in this company.
Yep.
You should not be evaluated.
Yep. As opposed to, the way I read this is people need to, disclose their quotes relevant financial interests more generally here, which would be problematic.
I agree. It's like, even if you have nothing to do with it whatsoever, if you've got someone that is bidding and
Yeah.
you've got some type of connection, financial, even though you have nothing to do with it whatsoever, you're supposed to disclose it. How would you even know?
Yeah. It's
So this sounds
operationally difficult.
really broad.
Yeah.
It could be.
Who's supposed to track the collection of confidentiality agreements?
Here they are, right here.
Mark is like, didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
well, they're provided, it says right here, they're submitted to the town administrator.
Yeah.
So they would be considered part of the bid, the bid
Yep.
folder for that bid.
Will
Yeah.
that be cumbersome? a lot of,
Could be.
It depends on how many people are involved in a particular process. For a large project, yes,
Yeah.
it'd be fairly cumbersome. We're using an outside engineer and,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. For small processes, it wouldn't be that cumbersome.
I think about a school project, for example, that this stuff covers the schools as well, I assume.
Yes.
So that could be substantial. And this requires random compliance reviews. Do we do that today?
Not
For
today.
Confidentiality, okay. So my main concern here is understanding the implications administratively of these things. I think conceptually, they make sense and that you want to be sure that there aren't, conflicts of interest out there that create the opportunity for, fraud or abuse or whatever. But at some point, we're not, the national budget here for the Defense Department or something, billions of dollars going through here. So we're small enough that you folks and others, I think, are watching this process fairly carefully. So I don't lose much sleep over, misbehavior on this stuff. On the other hand, having a policy is helpful, I think. So.
We can take that back and
So the,
streamline it a little bit. If that's
yeah,
what
so
board wants.
the other thing to consider too is, again, when you're talking about an evaluation process, normally you're talking about requests for proposals where there is some decision-making that happens as a result of the bidders and that. For invitation to bid, it's pretty much price and is the bidder qualified to submit a bid.
Right, right.
So things like the school projects that you referenced, Sam.
Yep.
Pretty much those there, there's not a lot of wiggle room. Invitation for bid, lowest qualified, bid, gets the work.
I don't see
So-
why this is any different than what we already have to do with the conflict of interest rules that already apply here. So this one needs to be held. Even if Jim didn't say, I'd say yes, because the more I read it, the more it sounds like it actually does make sense.
Let's make it workable, basically.
Okay, so we're gonna hold that one, Jim, also. Okay, reconciliations, any wordsmithing on this one?
One typo, section F, line 4, I think it should say town treasurer will individually reconcile.
F, what line?
Line 4, section F, town treasurer will.
Okay, will individual, so the will shouldn't have been marked out, right?
Should say
Oh, right
will.
there.
Yeah,
Okay, so you just should have marked out the will.
Yeah.
See? Treasurer will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're just gonna add the word will back in.
yep.
Okay, anything else on that one,
Nope,
Sam?
that's it for me there.
Okay, but we're holding this one too, right, Jim? Reconciliation, page 23. All right. You guys should have put Jim in your group. Okay, revenue turnover is the next one. So we're holding that one too, Jim? Okay, Sam, any typos?
Yep, I got several there. The purpose talks about town and school. But you don't handle school funds, do you, Brian, administratively?
Well, they do turn them over to us, yes.
Okay, so so you have.
It's like off-site departments, building,
Basically the same role there.
yes.
Okay, I didn't realize, I thought they were fairly independent. of that.
Yeah, no, we do that for them.
Do we bond everybody who handles material payments?
We are actually relooking at that, but yes, the ones that are substantial
I think we should.
money
but I
holders,
don't,
yes.
I didn't remember vaguely that there are many people that we have bonded for.
No,
That in
there's,
here?
there's not a
Yeah,
lot.
It's required.
It's in this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna have to
And-
start doing that too.
and in.
yes, if there's additional people that are, yeah.
In section A, do we document every cash payment with a receipt book in quotes?
No, well, that would be new.
All right, so
Cash
it would be new, but is it
I
worth,
think that's important.
okay.
Yeah.
I defer to you guys on that one.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that'd be pretty easy too, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
It does all come through us.
it seems kind of old school, Sam, and we
Yeah.
don't take a lot of cash. We say, we encourage checks and
Yep.
credit cards and whatever, but for the cash that does come in, from
we
where
do-
I sit, I like that.
Do we do Venmo?
No.
We can't do Venmo,
Mhm.
no.
Can't?
We can't.
State law?
We can't have the town be the receiver
Oh,
of the money. It's something with the way Venmo is
oh,
structured.
okay.
But yeah,
Um,
because we looked into that.
Crypto
Um,
too.
No.
No crypto.
In section B, in section B, do we use turnover forms? I don't know what those are.
We do,
Okay.
we do.
All right.
Yep.
Mhm.
And finally, major, in section D, Vadar is caps. I only use initial cap when they referred to it, section D.
What?
Oh,
Vadar is the state.
all
system.
caps?
It should be all caps acronym.
Yeah, we could change
Yeah, we
that.
go either way with that. So
Really? I've seen it as caps all the time. Anyway,
Yep.
that's it
then
for
we
me.
really know what it is.
Mhm.
It's
Okay, so we're holding this one. Anybody else have a question on this one? Okay, so we're holding this one per Jim's request, so that one, we're not getting a whole lot approved tonight.
Wait a
Okay.
minute. I'm fine with tailings.
great.
I was gonna say, that should be an easy one. It's just, again, the changes on the tailings, which is unclaimed checks,
Yes.
are
Yeah.
are just more timing of when we do things. It's, I don't,
And tailings are uncashed checks.
uncashed checks.
Why do we call them
Basically.
tailings?
It's an old term. I don't
Yes,
know.
okay.
I move that the board approve the
Mhm.
tailings policy as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we got one. Okay, so just to recap, we approved forecasting,
5.
we improved indirect cost allocation.
Yep.
We approved OPEB. We did OPEB, right?
Yep.
Okay, so number 8. So on this list, right, I'm doing this in the order. We approved, again, 5, 6, 8.
9.
We didn't do any fraud, we didn't do grants, we didn't do procurement, we did reconciliations, and then tailings, right? That's it.
I got some comments about debt management.
We're getting to
we're
that
just
one. We're
gonna
doing that
hold that.
last. We're all gonna have, we're not gonna approve
Okay.
debt tonight. That's too big. So we left debt for last. So everybody agree with what we did, Carla?
Yes.
Okay, so
5 of
again,
them, right?
5, 6, 8, and 18,
And 9.
And 9.
and 9, sorry.
Special purpose.
Okay. 5, 6, 8, 9,
Some
18.
progress.
It's good.
So that's 5.
It's a third. Close.
We'll take it.
Okay,
One step at a
all right, now we saved debt for last, the best for last, because that one is really
Most
important.
significant.
Yes,
Well,
okay.
to be fair, we have not finished that. This is really a matter of bringing matters to the attention of the board because these are significant issues and we know that at the end of the day, this gets kicked upstairs. And so to sort of start off,
What does kicked upstairs mean?
it means it comes to us for substantial review.
Although
Yeah, it doesn't, yes.
it sets a kind of a, I think of it this way, like when we have the annual audit, Tony Roselli comes and says, you really should be doing this. This is setting up a new kind of standard of now, you've instituted policies that say you should do this. And, if there's 1 year where town meeting authorizes more debt than is called for in your policy, that's one thing, but where you just do it consistently over and over, then it starts to have kind of an impact, right?
Well, when you start talking about debt, you end up really setting yourself up for year after year violations of a potential policy. So just to start out with, the state wants us to compare, so there's sort of 4 guardrails. First guardrail is sort of applehood pie and motherhood. It's thou shalt not borrow for longer than the life of the asset. That's not controversial, I hope.
Nope.
The second guardrail that the state sets up is that start with that the total debt of the town, which includes all of the water debt and any debt, including,
Okay, does it include OPEB and pension liabilities too?
No.
no,
Okay, that's an important question. So even though it's on our balance sheet as debt, you don't include that in our 5%. Okay, all right.
no. So, but it does include things like the Algonquin debt. If the rec ever incurs debt, our share gets included. The state would like us to compare that debt to the general fund. That there should be a ratio that you should not exceed
The debt or the debt service?
the debt service to the general fund. We took a somewhat more expansive view that it wasn't just the debt fund, general fund, but it was all of the revenue of the town. And so that's why in this first one, we've defined a concept called total revenue. This is a way of increasing the denominator in some of these analyses. And that would include the water receipts, CPA revenue, ambulance funds, and we're now having a discussion about revolving funds, whether those should be encountered. That's not a big one.
Because you're including it in the numerator, right?
Pardon?
You're including it in the numerator. so-
Numerator is your debt service itself.
The numerator is the
Right.
debt service itself. The debt service is just the service on the total debt.
Who's trying to get the denominator bigger.
Yeah. And so that is it's a modest, but real deviation from the state recommendations. So the first guardrail is that the total debt service shall not exceed 10% of total revenue, not the general fund. The state would like us to say 10% of the general fund. So we've been slightly more expansive. The state would like us to reserve 2 to 4% of that debt service to service debt for the support of capital infrastructure, that is the repair and replacement of existing capital infrastructure.
2 to 4 of the 10.
2 to 4 of the 10 for the debt service. This is a minor deviation from the state requirements. The state requirements would like you, if you ever fell below 2%, to then take whatever that difference is and reserve it in a special fund.
Well, I guess this is naive. What else do you have debt for besides capital
Well,
projects?
this is.
No, this is-
existing Capital.
This is capital maintenance. So this is a roof,
Oh, okay,
repairs to the roads, things like,
okay.
so it's 2 to 4% for maintenance and replacement of existing capital infrastructure. That's separate and distinct from a major new building program, which is sort of the other typical option. So again, these are the sort of minor tweaks to the state guidelines.
But we currently have no debt like that.
No, I'm not sure, but Brian, what's?
You mean for replacement?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have.
The
debt that we're paying for
no,
to-
the debt for the roof? That's,
Okay, I thought you were playing in the future, so you're talking about something that we spent to replace something?
yeah, because it's debt service. So, it's,
Oh, it's maintenance and a replacement of.
yeah. So, we're going to have to put a roof on the Finn School sometime.
Versus new capital projects. Is that the distinction we're trying to make? The 2 to 4 is for something we're trying to,
No, this is debt service. So if, for example, we had,
I get what the debt service is, I get what the 10% is, but they want 2 to 4 of the 10 to be for a certain thing, right? And if you don't spend it for that, they want you to set it aside.
they would like us to set aside, we chose not to set it aside,
Okay.
to take a somewhat more liberal view.
So aren't they saying they want 40% of your debt service to be debt incurred to replace something
Yeah. So, for example, we,
versus building a whole new school?
versus building a whole new school, 40% of your, 20 to 40% of your debt service should be for maintaining your existing capital infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, this is the state guidelines and in the state's infinite, I think they're trying to give us reasonable guidelines.
Okay.
And this is why we're having this discussion.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm just truly trying to understand this. I'm not criticizing what the state is saying is reasonable. They know more than I do.
So that's their recommendation is that there would be this 2 to 4% that, if we need to replace a water line, that comes into that. We have to, the culverts we have to replace that we're thinking about bonding, the debt service associated with that would fall into that. The school roofs would fall into that. Any of a wide variety of the sorts of things, a new public safety building would not.
Nope.
So then, the next one is, the total, now we've now used total debt to equalized value. And, we've recorded there that, we're to target 4%, but, thou shalt not exceed 5%.
Why did you pick 4 instead of 5?
Well, 4 is a target
Okay,
and, 5 is the state law.
okay.
4 would came out of the state documents that suggested that when you hit 4% of equalized value, you're going to start experiencing physical stress.
So we're going to, if we adopt this, target 4%.
Target.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. And then 5% is the state limit. The last guardrail is that the debt portfolio should be such that 50% of the total debt matures within 10 years. And a week ago Monday, we sat down with Jason and these have been, very productive and useful discussions, because this is important stuff. And, it's painfully clear that if we were to build the school as anticipated, we will blow through some of these constraints. We
Wow.
would probably blow through the debt service as a percent of total revenue, and given, what we currently owe, and we would definitely blow through the debt maturity limits.
But not the
But-
equalized value. Okay, so.
Yeah, but not the equalized value. And so what we discussed was coming up with specific wording that would be for a school construction. In fairness to the group, this is hot off the presses. I sent it off on Monday because I was tasked with drafting it. So this is a work in progress, but it does attempt to identify this. Now, I wrote the thing that's highlighted in yellow, which I refer to as the honey, we've got to cut the credit card up clause. Which is to say, if we were to do something like this, then it's going to sharply curtail our ability to borrow for other purposes. So again, this is a work in progress, and we are very interested, I think, in hearing the board's view, because you guys clearly have thoughts on this subject.
So I want to start this one. I intentionally didn't read this one because I knew we were going to discuss it tonight. I knew we weren't going to vote on it. But I do want to look at this with an eye toward the Neary project to make sure that whatever we adopt, we don't basically cut the rug out from us as far as being able to fund the school if it were to pass, so that we've got a policy that allows us to do that. So this is why I want to spend a whole lot of time with this one. Okay, so this helps you telling us what you're doing tonight. But and I agree with you as far as parameters that we would blow through most of them. So you've proposed an exception for that school debt is how you are going to keep us from blowing through
Right.
those.
And the state does permit you to violate the percent of
5%.
equalized value for the purpose of school construction.
Do we understand why? What the philosophy is? Do they just think school buildings are so important or so expensive they have to make that exception? I've never understood why they do that.
I think you probably hit it on the head. Remember, this is a political discussion at the end. You can't build when state reimbursements were more generous. This probably didn't become an issue, but I think it has become an issue, particularly for communities that don't seem that the state looks down on, like ours. So that would be my best guess is, I've talked to people who were involved in the state a few years ago who said, yeah, that doesn't apply to you. You're a rich community. So
Okay, so any
and-
more, Al, you want to say tonight before we take this one home and muse over it? Anything else you want to say about the debt?
no, that's,
One tiny question. When you mentioned that the reserve of 2 to 4% for 10 years of debt service to serve for repairs, say the school passes and then you want to do something to fix Fin Up, to basically change the bathrooms so adults can use them. is that counting as repairs or is it renovation? And it wouldn't,
I think that would be a renovation.
I
Yeah,
I would think.
yeah,
so.
that's taking care of an existing capital asset.
so that wouldn't, I mean, it says if you're gonna replace a roof, that's not gonna change the adjustment. If you're gonna do changes inside the building. it's-
Well, remember, as currently written, if we, and again, this is a topic for discussion, nothing is cast in concrete. As currently written, if we borrowed the money, if we authorize the borrowing, then following we've got to tear up the credit card rule, we would be paying cash for these things rather than borrowing because we,
Are you, is your carve out one school?
yeah.
Marguerite, so that 2 to 4%, it sounds like they're trying to encourage you to basically take care of your assets, you
Yes.
know? When they need to be fixed, fix them.
Yep.
Don't wait till the last second when it's gonna cost 3 times what it would if you've done it.
So,
years ago.
I understand that and I think it's great, but if you're repurposing a building, does that count as maintenance or something?
I think
I
you're
think so.
trying to, you know, Finn needs a roof no matter whether it's a school or not. It's
Mhm.
gotta have a new roof soon.
Yeah.
Um,
At the end of the day, it's an asset of the town of Southborough.
It's not a new asset.
I'm not willing to tear up the credit card completely. I mean, that to me is a little absolute, without some sort of a fallback there, flexibility around that is what I'd look for. So I know you and I have different philosophies.
All right, so this is one that,
I won't tell you about my secret credit card.
okay, so we're gonna
Please.
take this one home and, you know,
Yes.
of all of them, this is the one to really spend substantive time on. Sam can fix the eyes and.
And
Teeth.
to be fair, the group hasn't met and discussed
Right, so.
the
This is in
school
its
exception.
infancy.
This came out of the last meeting and at our next meeting, I'm sure we will have,
So you're gonna meet again to continue to talk about this?
absolutely, yeah.
Probably
yeah.
a couple more times.
Okay.
And just as an aside, just to make it a little a better outlook, the ones that we haven't done, there's a couple that are very close, very close. So we're not that far away from knocking off several of these.
All right, so we'll just keep at it till they're done, then we'll go to the financial management policies, right?
Yes,
Okay. All right, everybody happy with that for the moment?
Yep.
All right, so Mr. Probst is now here. So we're going to now go back to Matt Probst's agenda item he was at. He's been busy. He's been at the MTC tonight. And so now we will talk about surveys. And give Marguerite credit. She's been working with Matt on trying to get this done.
Yeah, thank you. Won't take up too much of your time, but do want to share with you what I've been looking into so far. This is all about customer satisfaction and feedback surveys. As many of you are aware, we have an annual Southborough Citizen Satisfaction Survey, which has had some good response over the last several years. And we've actually gone through and worked through trends. And I'm not here tonight to share the results of that. We can do that for another meeting. But there's been some discussion around town. I've been hearing about the desire to complement this big, massive survey, which is heavy, intense, takes 30, 40 minutes if you go through the whole thing, with something that's much lighter weight, something simpler, and something that is targeted to the interaction, to the service that was rendered right at service rendering time. So as we all know, basically feedback is golden. We should embrace it. Good feedback, bad feedback, it's an opportunity to improve. We should cherish it like a gift. I went through and found that there's a few other towns that are doing feedback. And by the way, contact us forms aren't feedback, right? Generic open feedback forms are okay. What we're referring to here is specific, feedback on customer interaction. And when I say customer, I'm referring to anybody who interacts with the town. That could be a citizen, that could be a business that's applying to some board for a permit. That could be a contractor that has gone through the permitting process and getting inspections. Basically, anybody who interacts with the town for services. So I found a variety of towns that are in Massachusetts that are already doing this. And one of the things I'm planning to do is reach out to those towns to find out what is the process they follow? After they receive the feedback, how do they triage it? How do they report on it? How do they summarize it? And how do they leverage that feedback? Because what we don't want here is to add more process for process sake, and add more things for the employees to have to spend time on reviewing, et cetera. So I put together a few goals for basically we call customer satisfaction survey, if we were to design one. And what my intention here is to start thinking about and put together a design, then come back to the select board and town administrator with some ideas about how it might be designed. So the initial goals that ideas I've put forward is, first of all, low cost, no cost, right? No additional cost for the technology, the tools. It should be, of course, lightweight for the people that interact with it and submit the feedback. So it should be easy, lightweight for anybody who's interacted with the town. Just like you go to the airport, you exit the bathroom, there's a simple, lightweight, one click. How did you like that experience? They know the context. They know exactly which bathroom you visited and whether it was a good or bad experience. Same thing with town. After you get done with completing the permit inspection, or after you complete interacting with the planning board for some process, what was the experience? And capturing it right post-interaction time. So preloading it with the context of the interaction, make it simple. Use some sort of technology, minimize the possibility of ballot stuffing. So somebody doesn't want to rail on some department or board, look at opportunities for that. Minimize the effort required by employees and departments and boards to receive, triage/route, and process that feedback. Of course, that's independent from, independent from the actual work to actually incorporate the feedback. So, receiving and processing, understanding it, that's going to take some effort, but we want to minimize that effort. The incorporation of feedback is a completely separate, independent discussion. Obviously, we want to make sure it's easy to summarize the feedback, correlate across multiple submissions, and report on. So it shouldn't be we don't want to create effort and work. It should be something that's sort of automatic correlation, reporting, et cetera. And the overall goal is to provide transparent visibility to the respective department that the citizen or the contractor or the business was interacting with, the town administrator and the select board. And the last note I just want to share is that we all know that there's a positive correlation between employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction. When employees are satisfied, customer satisfaction tends to increase. There's also, interestingly enough, an opposite correlation, which is sort of a happy cycle that when customers are satisfied, employee satisfaction tends to raise. So there is a benevolent cycle here that if we can incorporate customer feedback into our processes, we believe that it can help town employees, board volunteers, committee members. They actually tend to be more satisfied as well. So again, our goal is not to rail on some board or committee or department, et cetera. It's just to be it's actually to improve the process through virtuous cycle of good feedback. So I'm not here to report anything or a particular process. Just want to say, starting the process for investigating this, and I would love any of your thoughts as we work towards this.
So are you proposing to do this through the MTC or yourself?
We've discussed this as part of the MTC. Of course, the MTC curates and runs the town satisfaction survey, and we'd probably be using the same tools. MTC has a professional SurveyMonkey account that can do a lot of the correlation. So it's probably under the purview of the MTC.
So tonight, are you just looking for our blessing to keep going and come back?
Keep going, as well as any thoughts, any initial thoughts and initial reaction. you might have, suggestions. Yeah.
Well, my first question is, what bathroom at an airport has a button that you push and say,
Seen this.
I've never seen one.
No, I've seen this. Yeah. it's-
Yeah.
Really?
I've seen,
I've never seen it.
So
Okay,
Yeah,
whatever.
If there's a
Really
big
smiley
problem
faces.
and it gets a ton of no's, they flood that area.
Okay, so I'm going to start looking for that. So interesting. So, I think you've outlined to me what you need, which is when you say the light touch. When do I do a survey? When it's 2 questions, right? Because you get asked for surveys for everything now, right? I'm not going to spend a long time on a survey. I did the town one, I will do that one, but not necessarily so. I think you got it nailed as far as what you need to end up with here. So I don't know why we wouldn't want you to go to the next step and come back with a specific recommendation as to what others are doing, what you think would work to help us improve what we do in this town.
So I was thinking like, some of the things that you mentioned that on one end of the spectrum is, a permitting board. It culminates in a decision. And it would just seem to me that if an applicant didn't get the relief that they're looking at, that, they naturally would say, no, I'm not satisfied, right? But, like the important questions there were, do you feel like you were treated fairly? You think you were treated with respect?
Timely.
Timeliness, yeah. So it seems to have a better application to the most kind of retail, functions, which I think of as, there are some kind of, counter service type, functions that town employees do. And then, does it make sense to start with kind of like a pilot or something and try and then, it also, I think, makes sense to get input of department heads of what their views are, where would be a good place to put it. I can just offer one example of where, one time I had a water problem and I called the DPW and this was before I was in the select board, but I called and I thought they did such a great job of responding to it, taking care of the problem. I thought, okay, I'm gonna call the DPW and just say, I just want to think this person did a great job, So I think that might, those type of kind of service calls might be an example of where there could be a role for it, It's also hard because with our personnel rules, it's not really we can reward, if there's one employee with super outstanding track record of service, there's not really a way, if they're subject to a collective bargaining agreement, to, reward them by paying them more rather than other employees that are doing the same thing,
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you provide that feedback, there's some satisfaction from that employee. saying,
Yeah.
Wow, I'm getting great reviews. I
Yeah.
appreciate the feedback I'm getting.
Yeah.
It would be better if we could find a way to pay them a little extra, but it is a challenge.
We do have, I think we have on our website right now, there is a form for commending an officer or dispatcher. So we do have that, a way of commending good service from an officer or dispatcher. And it'd
But
be
if
great
the-
to expand it to other.
If the overarching goal of this is to try to improve service where we can and be aware of where we can, this is what this is. I still think it's really worthwhile doing this. Yes, we don't, this is municipal world. You don't give big bonuses to people like you do in the private sector. It is what it is. But I do think that this could be pretty useful in trying to pinpoint areas where we could improve what we do for people here.
I'm all in favor of this. One of the most useful books I ever read was something called Exit Loyalty and Voice. And it was really talking about, what your customers tell you. And what I learned from that is every time a customer complains, they're actually doing you a gigantic favor, because for every customer that complains, there are 20 that are unhappy. And the other way aside too, and that complaint gives you a chance to take action to improve the service. And, so yes, we desperately need to do something like this, not because we have a lot of complaints, but because, we do want to recognize people who are doing a good job. And if there are things we need to work on, we need to work on them.
Okay, so yes for you, yes for me. Andrew, are you a yes? Tentative yes?
I'm kind of a more nuanced yes, but I think.
Well, all we're doing tonight is saying, go to the next step, come back.
Yeah,
to
but I
us.
think, I mean, like, one of the things you talked about is talking to there are a couple other communities that have done it. I'd be very interested in hearing how they did it and what were the best applications of
What they improved. Sam?
Unlike Andrew's nuance, yes, I'm a crass yes. I think it's a great concept. I think there's some interesting opportunities and options here in the sense that if you talk to other communities, one of the questions I'd ask is not only what have you done, but what positive results can you demonstrate out of it? So what did you find that you were able to actually change and improve? To give us some ideas about that. And to Kathy's point about the ability to get people to respond, I've always felt that gathering information at the point and time of service is critical. And so that's hard in many contexts, as a matter of fact, because somebody gets service from the town and they're not here in the townhouse or wherever department is providing the services. So getting them to sit down and key in a response to questions is a challenge. I also think that there's value in what I think of as sort of raw, unfiltered data, in the sense, just a crazy example, if we actually put a terminal at the exit to the townhouse and somebody had a chance to click on a button, how was your experience at the townhouse on a 0 to 5 scale or something like that, regardless of what they were doing at the townhouse. Collecting that data is not all that specific, but it certainly could give you a feel for the general response from people who come through this building, which I think could be something of some value, but certainly not sufficient to, change procedures or whatever to be more responsive. So I think there are a number of dimensions that you can get value from as you think about these kind of things. And again, being able to weed out dissatisfaction from you get an answer you didn't like versus the process was good. I still didn't get an answer that I didn't like. But that is value. And many people will tell you that kind of thing. Other people are going to tell you, I didn't like it in any sense. But beginning to ask those kind of questions and seeing the answers you get, I think can tell you where there's better information and where you're probably not going to get very good information, and focus on the places that you think you can get value and provide useful feedback back into the organization. So it's sort of, in my sense,
Okay, Sam,
exploration.
it's a crass yes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, Marguerite, you're a yes, right? Because you want to do this.
Yeah, and mine
Andrew's
is,
a nuance yes, I'm a yes, Sam's a crass.
I'll say
yes.
yes, yeah, and mine is just very quick. I mean, it is a better method of communication than reading it in a comment on my Southborough, right? Anyway, just
Yeah,
saying.
those are useful too, though.
They
actually.
are.
Well, remember how, she doesn't do the anonymous anymore, so you don't get many comments. Okay, so it sounds like you've got 5 yeses, 2 a little bit tentative, 3 pretty hearty, to go forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming,
Thank
Matt,
you.
and all the stuff that you do. Okay, yeah. So Andrew has requested a 5-minute break, so we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be back. at 8:42. Okay, we're going to jump in a little bit to accommodate some of the people that are here, especially Carla. Okay, so we're going to go to the consent agenda. She's got one thing on there she is very interested in. So we've got items A, B, C, D, E, and F. Anybody want to hold minutes? I do. I need to hold both of them. I got
Yep.
changes on both. Okay, you do too, Sam, on both?
Yes,
Okay. We're gonna hold B, that's one Carl is interested in. Anybody want to hold C, which is increasing the veteran stipend to 17.5? D, I want to hold, that one is easy. E is appoint Nadia as a full-time dispatcher. Anybody want to hold that one? No? And then F is to approve the executive session minutes from January 7th. Anybody want to hold that one? No?
Nope.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items C, E, and F.
second.
All in favor? Okay, minutes, go Sam.
January 7th, line 116 should be January 21st agenda, not the February 21st agenda.
Okay,
Line 129 should be 6/30/25.
yep,
And line 192, Jesse is misspelled, needs an E on the end of it.
so it's an E on Jess, right?
Jesse, yeah, Jesse.
Okay,
That's it for me, for that.
all right, let me finish that one. Anybody else have anything on this one? I got a couple. Okay, so if we all go to, just correct me on this and go to line 190, 89, 90, 91, 2. This is, okay, so I got to Jesse too. So start at the top. She stated the board has one seat on the, I would say, reorganized trust, capital T, and 3 people have submitted applications for the 5-person board of trustees, not committee. So replace committee with board of trustees. So that's my 2 things on that one. But I've got a substantive one. Where did it go? Okay, I'm looking for where we referred the articles to the planning board. She said we referred all 3. We only referred the first 2. So I'm trying to fix that. Where did they go? I'm looking for where we referred the articles to the planning board. She listed the 3. We only referred the 2. We got to get rid of the 3rd one. And I,
182 to 185.
okay, there you go. Yeah. So everybody agree we didn't do number 3? Because there was no article to refer. We only did the 2.
Yeah, I think.
Agree?
Yep.
You tell me you agree. Okay. All right. So Bridget, just get rid of number 3. We haven't referred that one yet because we haven't seen the article. Yeah. Okay. That's all I've got. Anybody else on January 7th, right? No?
That's all.
That's it. Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes from January 7th.
Second?
All in favor? Okay. Now, January 15th. Sam?
Yep. That was a Zoom meeting. And so it needs a new header on it to reflect it's a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
And there were no documents discussed.
Yes, I think she copied
There,
this from
yeah.
this. So I agree. So that last document thing has got to go
Yeah,
away. So Katie did these, right?
Right, yes.
Okay, so Katie, who's going to fix these? Katie? Okay, so she just got to make it a Zoom and then get rid of this thing at the bottom because
Right.
she's just picked that up from Melanie's,
Cut and paste.
these
Yeah.
minutes here.
Yep.
So they just need to be deleted. There was no document. So that's it for that one?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes from January 15th.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, now let's go to Carla. So Carla would like to support, I assume, the amended job description for the assistant town accountant that has been through the personnel board, right? So come on up, Carla. Anyway, so tell us why this is a good thing.
Okay, is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Well, as you know, the accounting office is a busy office with responsible work, and the assistant actually has statutory authority if I am not in place. That position takes that over. And I just sort of revised the job description to take out kind of the tasky items to focus on the fact that looking through at transactions through a wider lens is essential for smooth operations. So just I kind of emphasize the ability to analyze the impact of financial transactions, like if you're paying a bill and it's from building, it probably shouldn't be $10,000, things like that, just thinking with a wider lens. Also.
So you initiated this?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. And we've also, we've welcomed many new people here. We've had, a lot of turnover probably in the past year and a half. And a lot of the assistance time has been dedicated to training those new folks and, learning having them learn the processes and getting on board with the software and whatnot. And the position really does provide some advanced support for, public records requests, things like that, and, prep for the audit. And so I just would like to be able to have the job description reflect the job.
Okay, what she's actually doing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions for Carla as far as the changes she wants to make to the assistant town accountant position? Go ahead, Marguerite.
I just had one. You're adding these in to essential functions, basically.
Yes.
You're not
yeah.
taking any of the current essential functions.
No, actually, this isn't the red line version, but these 3 bullets are just kind of a summary of what's into the essential functions.
So are these essential functions in the one that I'm looking at here gonna go?
They're sort of summary of what these essential functions are.
So these essential functions in the current one will be struck and you're just gonna have these 3?
No,
You're gonna add these 3 in.
those 3 are kind of a summary of what is in there now. This isn't the red line version, so.
Okay, so I guess I'm just asking, in the one you're proposing,
Yep,
the essential functions that I'm looking at, audits, accounts payable, reviews and accrues payroll, and on and on and on, and there's
Yep.
like all those, they're gonna stay?
they're gonna stay. Yep, they're the modified essential functions.
Okay, so, and because I know writing job descriptions is like the hell job, right? But, so in other words, this here will be the 3 general headings that kind of cover,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, yep, they're not actually going to be in the job description, but they are kind of a summary of the functions.
Okay, good, and they'll appear where in the,
They won't, they won't.
Okay.
No, it's kind of just a summary of the almost full page of essential functions.
got it.
Sort of what we emphasized, getting out kind of like the tasky type items out of the job description, more so focusing on the process versus like the
Okay,
task.
all right.
Yeah.
All right, these are hard things to write. Yeah, thank you.
Agreed, yes.
Anybody else with a question on the amended assistant?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I watched the personnel board discussion. So this is the same thing that the personnel board. Yeah, is
Yes.
that right? No changes from the personnel
Yep,
board's
no,
conversation.
this is what was before the personnel board, which they agreed to take a look at if this job description was accepted.
Okay, good. Yeah, that made sense to me, so I support this. Thank you.
Okay.
Al? Andrew?
Good.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the amended assistant accountant job description that's proposed.
Second,
All in favor? Okay, Carla, you can go home.
Thank you.
go forth and hire.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so the last thing on the consent agenda, everybody saw the letter from Harvard. We talked about this before. We announced this, but this is the written confirmation of the agreement that we have with Harvard now going forward as far as and they do call it pilot. They're not shy about using the word pilot. So pilot payment going forward. So we've gotten the check, the first one, $50,000, right? Yep. And so going forward, and Carla's got this to keep. So, as the select board changes, she knows what's supposed to come in. So 50,000 every year plus 2.5% COLA. And then the value of storing all the records that the town clerk has ready to give to them that they've built for us in space that is climate controlled. Okay. All right. And it's also not restricted to any one purpose. It used to be restricted to police and fire, so now it's our use for whatever we think is appropriate. Okay, all right. Anything else to add to that? Yep. Yep. And Carla, let's see. So I don't know who Justin Stratman is. That's not who we met. We met a group and it wasn't him. So hopefully You've at least got a name to call in the future if this doesn't come through, but I think you can probably count on this to come through because Harvard's got a big pilot program with lots of things. So I think we've probably been added to that database. Okay, all right. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the $50,000 donation from Harvard.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, back to
Good
reports. Yep, that is good news. Okay, chair's report. I'm just gonna add, kind of goes along with what Matt's trying to do here. So just coincidentally, last 2 days, I have had two people unsolicited give me great compliments about service they received from the town. One was that, people know me, I go to Subway a lot in town for lunch. As I was leaving one day, Chris Dano was pulling up to do an inspection of their smoke detectors. He's the fire inspection officer, whatever you call it, fire prevention officer. So he pulled up and I was leaving, he was going. So the next time I went back, which was 2 days later, I said, how'd that go? They go, I went fine. He's so great. He's so nice. And this town is so great. This is the two people that operated, husband and wife. They said, this is so different from where we came from, which was, I don't know, someplace in Rhode Island. So they said night and day as far as how that town treated us versus this one. So that was good. Then today I ran into the guy that owns so I was at Subway. So the guy that owns the Brickyard Plaza there that has Domino's in it. So he's actually not from here, lives in Lincoln. And they introduced me to him. And so we started chatting and he said, just want you to know, I've had great interactions with the town and things I've needed. It's been great. So I just thought, nice to hear nice things about people in town. Don't know who they interacted with, but whatever it was good.
In Brickyard there, that new restaurant, Senties, I think it is. I chatted with them and they were very complimentary of their relationship with the town. This is, I guess, a month or two ago when they opened.
Yeah, well, Leah Emerson was very
Yeah.
good about going down there, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Great feedback.
Very good. Okay, I don't think there's any other members' reports that I'm aware of. Mark?
So just quickly, and this obviously affects another item that we have under other matters. On January 8th, Governor Healy signed our new special act, which is Chapter 382 of the Acts of 2024, which made the changes that took the tree warden responsibility and gave it to someone other than you. So appreciate the help of Representative Donahue, Senator Eldridge, to get this moved through. And, it seems like a long time ago we made this change. So, but it
Does
is,
this mean I have to turn in my chainsaw?
you can, yeah, you
Good.
got to keep the chaps though.
Good.
So,
All right.
but yes, we're all
Go
set.
ahead. That's it?
Okay, that's it.
Okay, consistent with that, the next item is to appoint the tree warden. So nice segue. So last meeting, we actually approved changing the stipend as of 7/1/25 from 4,000 to 8,000. That part's done. Tonight's job, now that Governor Healy signed the special act, is to actually appoint the tree warden. Anybody want to make a suggestion?
Possibly Chris Leroy.
Oh, hey, that's a good one. Anybody disagree with appointing Chris Leroy as the tree warden? Okay. All right, Andrew, you want to make the motion?
I move that the board appoint Chris Leroy as the tree warden.
Second.
All in favor? Congratulations, Chris, and thank you very much. Okay. All right, we've had our last tree hearing, Al.
We hope.
Okay, the next one we're going to table, still being worked on. Then next is Al is going to update us on the wastewater project that he has been so hard working on.
Hey, we're ready. Vanessa, they don't trust me with a clicker.
Wise.
Chainsaws, yes, clickers, no. So this is I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity for the board to actually discuss in a little more detail, sort of some of our options for wastewater treatment for Route 9. And, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and we're starting to take the first steps. Next slide, please. Next. This is really about our shifting tax burden. We've gone along just more or less fine for the last close to 300 years. But I think everyone here is familiar with the fact that the tax burden has been slowly but steadily shifting onto the residents away from the commercial and industrial properties. And that if we wanted to return to a CIP to residential ratio of 80-20, which is our historic average, we need about $150 million worth of development. And the Route 9 corridor is the only area that can conceivably accommodate this sort of gain in value. Next slide. So the barriers to CIP growth include our zoning, and we know that we need to do work on our zoning ordinances. We got some reputational issues which we need to deal with. But a major issue that has consistently been brought up is the lack of wastewater treatment for Route 9 properties. We have parcels on Route 9 that don't perk or perk poorly, which limits the available uses and the available value. We have acres of asphalt that are required to cover the mini plants on commercial buildings. Here is an interesting fact. How far west do you think you have to travel along Route 9 to find the next community that does not have a municipal wastewater plant? The answer is Goshen. Population 926. See that star on the map? That's how far you have to travel west on Route 9 to find the next community without a wastewater system.
That's in Ohio, isn't it?
I think, well, from the Boston perspective, I think that's the edge of the earth. It's important to know that there are some commercial and industrial businesses that just don't work well with individual septics. Restaurants, grocery stores, biotech, and some manufacturing. And so we are limiting ourselves by doing this. Next slide, please. There are some substantial benefits to having a wastewater system. Makes our town more attractive to a variety of businesses. Just to give you a little flavor here, a restaurant generates 8 times as much wastewater as a commercial building on a square foot basis. Gives you an idea about why we have relatively few restaurants in town. It makes undeveloped parcels developable and by extension more taxable. It reduces impermeable surfaces. That's a big issue for stormwater management. It increases the property values whether you have connected or not. If you have access to a wastewater treatment system, the value of that property will go up. And I'm now working with the assessor to see if we can't quantify that, because I think it could be significant. Treated wastewater can also be used in the place of drinking water for some applications, particular irrigation, making this, a green solution, rather than taking this valuable asset of drinking water and using it for lower value applications. And it provides better monitoring and control of what goes into the environment. Next slide. So progress to date. We've had 3 studies that have been completed in the last year and a half. They've identified some design options. They've identified some short and medium-term volumes and some possible disposal sites. Over the last 3 months, I've taken the lead with a small group to begin to investigate how we would take the next step. I sat down actually with town council. We have not yet reached the we are a committee threshold or a subcommittee, but we will be there shortly. Next slide, please. So recent activity. We met with the Framingham DPW. They were very willing to discuss connecting into their system to access the MWRA Deer Island plant. We spoke to the MWRA. They're not terribly excited about taking our water. It has nothing to do with us. It has to do with the fact that they are still connected to a lot of combined systems, which combine stormwater with wastewater. And so they have peak loading problems. We've talked to the member of the Westboro Select Board about possibly connecting into their system, which is Westboro, Shrewsbury, and Hopkinton. Their system is currently at capacity and they're interested in expanding capacity. they think that they're going to have a challenge getting a permit to do more surface discharge. Surface discharge is where the treated effluent goes into a body of water, typically a river or stream. There is, we think, an opportunity for regional cooperation, and we're going to have to poke at that some more. But, you know, both Westboro and Marlboro in particular, and also Northborough, I think, are looking for solutions.
Al, why do
Excellent.
you have your parentheses the way you do?
Pardon?
Why do you have the parentheses the way you do?
Those are the current system structures.
Yeah, that's right.
Clear together.
Those describe existing systems.
And Framingham is.
So
by
Marlboro, and
itself.
Northborough has one together,
Yes.
Marlboro
Yeah.
processes for
but
North.
Southborough doesn't have one with Westboro.
Well, that was the idea, is maybe Southborough, Westboro, Shrewsbury, and Hopkinton could work together.
Okay.
Next slide. We've had discussions with Weston and Sampson, one of the authors of one of the studies. They confirmed that surface discharge is going to be difficult to do from a regulatory perspective. The ground discharge, which is essentially a sophisticated leach field, is the most practical option. With ground discharge, the treated effluent is cleaner than it is in a typical septic system going into a leach field, which means we can use the effluent for irrigation. Wastewater systems have substantial economies of scale. Bigger is better, which is kind of the emphasis for why it might be interesting to look at a regional solution. The other thing about wastewater systems is they can be designed to expand incrementally as people connect. We had a very good discussion with the Mass DEP. They confirmed that ground discharge is the most practical method. They're very willing to help. They suggested that sort of there's a major milestone, which is the integrated plan. It may now actually become, I just had a conversation with them today, that there may be something called a comprehensive plan, which is a little better. The comprehensive plan really focuses on wastewater. An integrated plan focuses on your water system, your stormwater system, and your wastewater system. So essentially, anytime water flows in your town is part of the integrated plan. But we may want to only focus on a comprehensive plan, which would only focus on wastewater. Next slide.
Say that again, what you just now said?
Pardon?
Say that again, what you just now said? We may want to focus on what?
Wastewater.
Comprehensive plans.
On a comprehensive plan targets just one source. An integrated plan looks at all three types of
And
water.
that's their terminology?
That's their terminology. We met with Veolia. That's a national company that manages water and wastewater treatment plants. A lot of communities hire companies like this to actually manage their treatment plant. It's a very specialized activity, requires licensed operators. Veolia does have a regulated utility division that owns and operates water systems and wastewater systems on a private basis, which means they would build it and operate it as a private utility. This is apparently common in the Mid-Atlantic states, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It's essentially no different than NSTAR or Eversource or National Grid. It is a regulated utility. There has to be some form of a utilities commission that oversees the sort of rate setting. This is not common in New England. As we know from regional dispatch, we are slow to change. But I think this is worth pursuing, particularly it is attractive from our town finance perspective because we don't own the plant, we don't build the plant, we don't have to fund the plant or the system. So there is a substantial benefit to us, but this may be a challenge to do. Next slide, please. We've begun to meet with Route 9 stakeholders. So far, we've only had one meeting, which was very supportive and understands that the users are ultimately going to end up funding the system. I'm going to be briefing the Board of Health tomorrow. I've had a conversation with the health agents because it's quite obvious that a local knowledge of soils is going to be important in trying to identify disposal sites. Next slide. So the big issues are, where would you locate a plant? You need about 4 or 5 acres. A plant essentially processes raw sewage, and out the other end comes treated effluent. We need to identify disposal site or sites, probably on the order of 5 to 10 acres of land. We need to settle on a business model, whether it's public, private, or private. And we need to settle on whether we're going to be looking at a town-only system or whether we want to work with our neighbors. And then we need to look at, is this only for Route 9 or are there other areas? There are some reasons why you might want to connect to schools. Schools have intermittent flows. And a wastewater treatment system really wants to have a consistent biological process going on. And, where you've got flows that are intermittent throughout the day and then intermittent through seasons, that makes managing those systems a little more challenging. We have the downtown area, which we know also has some needs. And this may be of interest to both the public and private schools. And we also want to identify areas of town that have poor septic capacity. And then finally, of course, a big one is how do we pay for the integrated plan and then ultimately the design, construction, and operation. Next slide, please. So we need to brief the Board of Health, the Planning Board, and the EDC, continue our outreach to stakeholders. We've got to have some discussions with the schools. We have to understand the integrated plan versus comprehensive plan requirements. Start looking for funding and have more discussions with Westboro and Marlboro. Really sort of start the discussions with Marlboro and open the door again with Westboro. Next slide. Near-term goals, like summer, late summer, to decide whether we really want to proceed with a plan, and then in the fall, fund the plan and start work on that. So this is sort of the intermediate step. It's an ambitious goal, but we've been making actually good progress, steady progress, and I'd like to continue to press forward.
So when you say select board decides whether to proceed with an integrated plan, likely 6 figures, is that low 6 figures or high 6 figures?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm guessing it's not low. This is akin to the study that is currently underway for the Neary School. It's the same sort of idea, identifying and refining design options to say, this is where if we're going to do this, this is where it's going to go. This is what it's going to cost. And this is who we're going to serve. So this is my understanding is it's a pretty substantial engineering enterprise.
So I thought before you said we were going to focus on comprehensive and not integrated.
Well, we have to sort that out. So the term comprehensive arrived at my doorstep. Yes. So I got a hold of the DEP, the guy who's been very helpful and supportive, giving us lots of information. And, so I said, can you give me an example of an integrated plan? What do I know? And so he did. And then he also said, well, then he sort of explained it in a little more detail about how an integrated plan integrates drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater. And we already have a drinking water system that we kind of have a plan for. We've got a stormwater plan. We don't have a wastewater plan. And so he said, if you're only going to focus on one, that's called a comprehensive plan. And so I think I had that conversation after I wrote the slides.
Okay, understood.
We're moving the ball forward.
Real-time development here.
So if this schedule were to pan out, we might be able to bring this to a fall town meeting.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think we also want to see if, this is a potential candidate for a one-stop sort of grant. I think looking for money for this is something we should do. And there's a lot of work to do, a lot of moving pieces.
If it turns out to be something that is beyond just Southborough, if it's a regional impact, that would really help the one-stop, the old Mass Works program likes those regional things. And from what we've seen, there is a real need for additional wastewater capacity in this area. So it just depends on who's ready to do it, who's ready to work with us on it. Hard to know at this point.
These are aggressive goals, but if you don't set an aggressive goal, you shoot for the stars and end up with a chorus girl.
This was excellent, Al. Good job.
Yeah, so that's where we stand.
Okay, let us know what we can do to help you move forward.
Don't worry.
Okay. Any questions for Al?
No, one thing I just will point out in terms of funding sources, we've had great success with Community Compact. And if we do a regional approach, kind of like we just did with, with this camera system for our water system, that may be something they'd be interested in looking at. And 6 figures would fall within their funding range.
Good.
All right. Okay, next item is the possible creation of a new entity called the Cemetery Commission.
Bill?
Is he here?
Bill was in the audience.
Is Bill here?
Was no longer.
He's no longer.
All right, well, he's written a memo. Everybody should have. Please. Marguerite is, I'm going to give her credit for this one too. Thank you. I think so far we have supported pretty much anything Mr. Cundiff has proposed to us. And so let's see what everybody thinks. I'm not one that is necessarily wanting to put together another commission. I mean, he raises a good point here. We got to start looking for land for new cemeteries. So he's given us a good, he says it's 10 years, we're going to be out of land. So we know we're going to have to do that. So we're going to have to get a process in place to do that. So that's one thing. He was also concerned about some of the smaller things that sometimes you have to make a decision on with the cemetery. And we had one that we've done this past year. And that maybe some people don't want to come forward publicly and do it. It's something that they feel uncomfortable. So he felt like the commission could handle that. That one to me is not that compelling. I still don't see why we can't delegate that to him completely. So we can talk about that. Anyway, Marguerite, you want to make a contra case here for doing this?
This sort of came up. I was in a meeting at the DPW about something else, which I can't remember what it was. And Bill said, I'd really like a cemetery commission. And I think part of it is there are things like the old burial ground has a tree growing up out of a grave and nobody can call in a work order because nobody knows they can call in a work order to say, can somebody cut the tree out of the grave? So it's basically, part of it would be that there would be eyes on the cemeteries of people that would have an interest in maintaining that everything was going well with them. And then there is also the issue of needing to expand, and there's also the issue of discretion. And I think, I don't want to speak for Bill, but insofar as I understand, he would appreciate some assistance with that side of running the cemeteries. And it would require an amendment to the special act where the DPW took over the whole cemetery. And as I understand, there was sort of a conversation that was going to happen with Jay Tallerman, but then there was it was decided we'd put it off for a while because maybe it wouldn't be a standing commission. Maybe it would be more of an ad hoc thing. And Bill said, no, he wanted a standing one. So that's where we are on that.
So I've talked to him since this, and he's not going to die on this one. So I can tell you that this is not his biggest issue by far.
Yeah.
So he's fine with what we decide. But remember, going back, 2 select boards, 1 select board, we've tried to make a really big effort to not add any new committees and try to streamline what we have because we don't have enough people to serve on them. We keep rotating the same people through them. We've got lots of vacancies. We did just get rid of the Public Works Planning Board, which was totally ineffective. So I just can't say that I'm too excited about doing this, at least at this time.
He needs to speak to it. I spoke to him on the phone tonight and I said, do you want elected or appointed? He said he wanted appointed by the select board. He said 3 people for 3-year terms. So he still has a, an interest in doing this, but I think he really needs to speak to it. I understand what you mean. We don't need another layer of bureaucracy, but he seemed to think it would be helpful.
Andrew?
Yeah, I don't support it. I think that just for the reasons that you mentioned, Kathy, that we already have a lot of vacancies. Our objective should be trying to reduce and streamline the number of committees, boards, commissions that we already have, rather than creating new ones. And I'll just leave it at that.
Sam?
Yeah, I guess I'm on the fence on this one, in that I've heard Bill talk about this. And I think there are some things that a committee could do that would be helpful to him. On the other hand, I'm not sure, how helpful relative to the sort of administrative overhead for another committee sitting out there. I mean, I think there are a couple very specific issues, like the cemetery expansion, to me, is a good opportunity for some sort of an ad hoc kind of committee to look at that particular issue. I think there's some possibilities there. In terms of other sort of operational things, we've got staff in DPW that manages the cemetery basically.
So in Marguerite's example, why can't the DPW cut that tree down without,
Nobody calls them about it.
well, why aren't they looking at it to
Well,
see what
we
needs to
could
be
do
Well,
done?
that's exactly the point. There is nobody looking
Yeah.
at that. It's everyone saying, oh, that tree's growing, it's terrible. Why doesn't the DPW do something? But there's no chain of command to do it. There are cemetery commissions or committees in just about every town around us. Some of them go directly to the town administrator. Some of them belong to the DPW. Some of them meet once a year. Some of them meet once a month. And so I looked around to see what there was, and we are a town that doesn't have a committee or commission with that particular purview. Usually it's 3 people, usually they're in the cemetery.
Maybe it's worth looking to see how some of the others are structured and what their charge is, what their responsibility is.
Northborough's is,
Instructive.
oh, I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
We know, I like to see what other people do too. I think it's instructive. I don't think we should necessarily recreate wheels sometimes, and other people do things, we can copy them. But to quote Jim Cleary at many town meetings, I don't really care what anybody else does. This is Southborough, so let's do what's good for Southborough. So I'm not convinced it's because others have done this. I just, I still like us trying to streamline our committee structures so that we end up with less vacancies and different people on these committees.
I might suggest the 2-for-1 rule. If we start one, we got to get rid of 2.
We got rid of 1.
Well, yeah, if we get rid of 1 more, then we can add 1. And, the world does evolve, but
Oh, no, we Public Works Planning Board. And then the other one was Shopsy.
okay, so we got rid of 2, but we added
21 Highland Committee.
yeah, so
That's,
we got to get rid of 2 more.
oh my God, we sound like we're French. This is
21 Highland Committee.
terrible.
Did we do any others? Tricentennial?
Yep, that's a new one. Yeah.
I think that's ad hoc.
That's ad
Um,
hoc. But the point is that there are things that are falling apart in the cemeteries. The metal doors on the crypt on 85 are rotten at the bottom. They're sitting there. Historical had to deal with putting a roof and facilities is on the tower in the rural cemetery. And there's a retaining wall that's bulging out. It's gonna collapse. And the problem is you can't get heavy equipment in there because it's got graves under it, right? So these are like major problems, never mind the trees, And they really need attention. I think Bill thinks he needs some
The
attention.
the retaining wall is a money issue, though. That's been there for a while and it's gotten kicked down the road here. So
Well,
the
okay,
commission's not gonna
apropos,
help with that.
apropos of that, if I could ask someone who's here who was been part of the acquisition of part of the rural cemetery to maybe speak about the retaining wall and explain why it would be helpful to have somebody with some knowledge of that look at the problem. I mean,
Bill doesn't mention that in this memo, Marguerite. He says two things, need to figure out where
Okay.
we're going to expand to, and some of these routine personal requests might be better off being funneled through a new commissioner. He didn't talk about,
okay, I'm not married
Maintenance.
to, it, but there is a problem with that. The wall's gonna collapse on the graves.
so my guess is he believes that DPW's responsibility is to maintain the cemeteries like everything else, right?
I think so. There may be some more follow-up with Bill on this one.
I think yes. Bob, if you don't want to speak to this, don't, but I think you should.
What is it you want him to speak to? Marguerite?
This is Bob Bazekas. He was part of the original cemetery commission that set up the rural cemetery. And he's also an engineer. And he has actually discussed that retaining wall with Bill. And I think some of his input was very valuable. And he knows the,
Not to put you on the spot, do you want to comment? You don't have to. Okay, so you'll have to come to the microphone
To the table here.
and formally introduce yourself.
you'll be sorry you came, Bob. I said, you'll be sorry you came.
Oh, no. I'm old enough.
Okay,
say
so
it,
just to
say
be
it
clear,
again.
though, this agenda item is not to talk about a retaining wall, it's to decide whether we want to propose a cemetery commission. So that's what we want you to speak to, is
Sure.
whether you think that is something we should do.
I was on the last cemetery commission elected before the DPW took over. And there was 3 members and we oversaw everything on that cemetery. And the maintenance, we had our own maintenance crews. I think we even had our own backhoe to open graves. So there was always somebody there. Then we went on to, when I was on the Board of Health, we started to look for a new cemetery. We knew it was a problem. That got shot down. And when I was the last year on the cemetery commission, the selectmen set up an ad hoc committee to get a new cemetery. So we did. We started, the Neil Ferris was the chairperson. I think John Bolden might have been on it. It was myself. It was 5 of us. And we went from where the heck do we go to get us land to building it out. The design phase, we did everything and it ended up on Middle Road, which was one of my initial, when I was on the Board of Health, that was one of my initial places to go.
So this is interesting. So the cemetery commission didn't do it. There was an ad hoc committee formed just to go find a place for the new cemetery. And some of the commission members were also on that ad hoc committee, it sounds like.
I was
You?
the only one.
You, okay.
It would have gone through the cemetery commissioners, but that was dissolved.
Oh.
This all happened at the
Okay.
same time. So like on a Friday, the cemetery commission was dissolved, and on Monday, we started the expansion program. Took us, I thought, almost 2 years. But we have one of the nicest cemeteries that I can see. And none of the clients complain about it. It would be a commission, a board, a committee, whatever you want to call it, it would be focused. And I'm sure it would have to tie in with Bill Cundiff, with the DPW.
Focused on finding space for a new cemetery.
Well, even overseeing the cemetery. I mean, he has nobody looking at it. Bridget used to do it.
Right?
I think Bridget came right after the DPW came into play. At the time, we had a superintendent, Mr. Bertonazzi, and then I think there was a Mr. Davis. And then Bridget came on board after that. At least she looked over it all the time. And then I think they subbed everything out for the landscaping and mowing and tree cutting and all that. So I think it's still subbed out.
It is.
You have some.
So maybe what we do, because Bill really didn't speak to the maintenance part in this memo at all.
Yeah.
So let's get him in here and let's talk about the maintenance part too.
I mean, by all accounts, it sounded like Bridget did a great job of keeping track of things and keeping.
No, she was very
keeping the
compassionate.
Residents happy.
with
Many
the
people say she did a wonderful job with them personally.
You know, she just retired. You know that?
Yeah, yeah.
She just retired. Okay,
So-
so let's table this for tonight. Let's get Bill in here and let's talk about the maintenance part. In addition to what he's got here and then make a
It
decision.
sounds like the DPW used to handle all that. So my question is, what is keeping DPW staff from doing the same thing now?
Okay, so we can ask him that
Yeah,
question.
okay.
Okay. So I'm very glad you came tonight.
Excuse me?
We may have a job for you.
You know what? I would, something like that, I would go back to do.
Okay, I'm not joking
really
either, so
enjoyed it.
yeah, okay.
Building the new cemetery was, we had a great crew on the board, or ad hoc committee, I should say. And we went, like I said, it was 2 years, but it was a real concentrated effort.
Okay, so now I'm really glad you're here. So it's just by chance you were here tonight?
Well, I read it on the agenda.
Oh, okay, so you did come for this one. All right, so I am so glad you're here. So this is great.
The other thing I was on too was the wastewater treatment committee years ago. Right at the town meeting, we got shot down. Big time. And I could understand that. And that was because, I mean, I just put in a new system myself, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was $30,000. So you spend $30,000, you know, you don't want to connect to a regular,
Right.
yeah, a system that's going to cost you how much? So, and we have 2 treatment plants in Southborough now. We have one at Wedgewood that I was involved in because I was part of that project.
Yep.
In
And
Madison
we have
Place.
one at St. Mark's.
There's one at
You got one in
Madison
Madison Place too.
Yeah.
Where?
There,
Madison Place, the apartments.
I think there are actually
Oh.
5 mini plants in town.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have one
No,
at,
our focus really is on Route 9 now, rather than sort of trying to connect to people's houses, at least in the medium term.
right.
We're just trying to get more business to come to Southborough. All right, so this has been actually very helpful, so thank you.
No, thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marguerite, for getting them up here. Okay, this one's easy. So Mark brought this up. Remember that our meetings in February are 3 weeks apart because of school vacation. We always try to not meet during school vacation because typically someone has someone that is school age and they go away. Andrew has said this time he's actually not going away, but I actually am. So Mark has got, and just so you know, Mark has got his spring break dates already set, so we're not upsetting him if we don't change this. So the thinking was maybe people wanted to just move it back to the normal schedule, the 18th. I'm just saying I can't with what I've got planned. It pushes me too close to my trip. Go ahead. You want to talk about the date? Okay.
With regard to water rates, Matt Abrams, who is our water consultant, he won't be able to make the 18th, the week of school vacation.
All right, so that seals it,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
Okay. All right, because remember, we're supposed to start that the 4th and then finish up on vote on the 25th.
That's
Okay.
where we're going. So,
All right.
yeah,
So good,
okay.
helps me. Okay, anybody have a problem sticking with this 25th as our second February date? Okay, all right, again, Mark's going to go to Florida. We're not upsetting that. He's going to get a spring break games in. He's got that all planned either way. So either way works with him. So we're just going to stick with it, right? 4th and 25th. Okay, Then let's just reiterate what's going to happen Saturday. Don't forget, Saturday is our budget summit. So we're going to start at 9. There's only 3 departments. We're going to start with fire, and then I believe it's DPW, then police, right? Then we're going to have pizza, and then we'll just have a budget discussion while we're sitting around eating as far as where we really stand, anything else we want to talk about, et cetera. But we got the 3 coming in. I hope everybody's ready as far as the liaisons. Right? Okay. All right. The next one we've already alluded to when we talked to Ellen. So the bylaw for CPC very clearly says that should any commission, authority, or board designating a member for the CPC cease to exist for whatever reason, the select board will determine the appropriate alternative designating commission, authority, or board, subject to any applicable state statute. So SHOPSI was a part of CPC. It has ceased to exist. And therefore we need to decide what entity, group, commission we want to appoint to replace SHOPSI on CPC.
I think the Affordable Housing Trust would be good.
Brilliant idea.
Perfect.
Okay. Anybody disagree with
How'd you
that?
come up with that?
Okay. All right.
Never thought about
Okay.
that.
All right. Do we have a second on that motion?
That's why you get the big bucks.
Okay,
Second.
so Andrew, is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Sam is seconded. All in favor of replacing SHOPSI with Affordable House Trust as far as CPC?
That's the,
represents?
the Board of Trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Yes. Okay, and Al, you'll take it from there, right? You'll take it from there. Okay, so now, because of the bylaw change, September 30th, it's up to the Affordable House Trust to appoint that person, and it will not come back through the select board. Okay, all right, everybody agree?
Yep.
Okay. And we have a recommendation, Al, for what it's worth, as you know. Okay, the warrant for April 7th. So there's nothing much in this at this point. Mark's got all the normal stuff in there. So I don't know that there's any point in going much further with it tonight. I mean, he's got it started, right? So we got the skeleton of it, but there's
Talked
really
about
nothing in it.
Adding one from the policies tonight.
Yes, we did. So you got that one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody disagree with wanting to discuss it in detail? There's just not much to discuss.
No.
Okay, everybody okay with that, Andrew? Okay, Marguerite? All right, we will discuss at a future meeting. Okay, last public comment, Vanessa?
No hands up, I see.
No hands up? Okay. So, we will be going into executive session with the appropriate motion per MGL Chapter 38, Section 21. We will not return to open session, and we're going to discuss the police chief contract negotiations, which is exemption 2. So could I have a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Al?
Aye.
Marguerite? Sam?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Cook is aye.